Chapter 477. Longmao's intention was very simple. He wanted to cut the weeds and eliminate all future troubles. Even so, Longao did not make a move in the end. After all, the other three clans had not made a move yet, which made him wary. Everyone in the Long clan knew that Longao had accepted the imperial city's invitation. Long Haosha and Mu Wanfeng, as the representatives, rushed to the dragon sect as fast as they could. They were afraid that Longao would leave early. Seeing his grandson, Long Haosha went straight to the point. He asked impatiently, "Ao, you've accepted the imperial city's invitation?" Long Ao nodded. Since things had come to this point, there was no need to hide anything. He replied, "Yes, grandfather. I've accepted the imperial city's invitation. I'll leave for the imperial city tomorrow." Hearing this, Long Haosha and Mu Wanfeng were shocked. Long Haosha said anxiously, "Ao, I believe you know better than me what kind of existence the imperial city is. If that's the case, why do you still want to go to the imperial city?" "You're right. Ao, I know you're very proud, but you can't be conceited. According to the grudge between you and the imperial city, the moment you go to the imperial city, they will definitely deal with you." He did not give Long Ao any chance to speak. Long Haosha continued, "You know there are tigers in the mountains. Why do you still want to go to the imperial city?" Looking at the two elders in front of him, Long Ao did not feel the slightest irritation or dissatisfaction. Instead, his heart was filled with warmth. Long Ao knew very well that whether it was his grandfather or grandmother, they were both concerned about him. Otherwise, the two elders would not be so bored as to come and meddle in his affairs. "Grandfather, grandmother, please take a seat." After the two of them sat down, Long Ao said, "Grandfather, grandmother, I can say with certainty that the imperial city will definitely not deal with me when I go to the imperial city this time." Long Haosha seemed to be surprised. He asked, "Why are you so sure?" "Grandfather, it's simple. If the imperial city wants to deal with me, they don't have to go through so much trouble and announce it to the world." Long Haosha and Mu Wanfeng did not say anything. They just listened quietly. "Grandfather, the grudge between me and the imperial city will have to be resolved sooner or later, but now is not the time. If we can form an alliance with the imperial city and deal with the other three forces together, it will be much easier." Long Haosha and Mu Wanfeng seemed to have guessed something. Both of them stared at Long Ao. "Ao, why are you so confident?" "Intuition." "Intuition?" It was actually intuition. Both Mu Wanfeng and Long Haosha were somewhat depressed when they heard Ao's words. They really couldn't understand why Ao was so confident. If there was even the slightest mistake, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Grandpa, Grandma, you don't have to worry. I have confidence." The two of them sighed deeply. Things had already come to this point, and there was nothing they could do. "Ao, I know your character. However, you must promise us that no matter what happens, you must first protect your own life. Do you understand?" Nodding, Long Ao comforted the two of them. After settling them down, Long Ao didn't immediately set off. Instead, he gathered many people and briefly explained the sect's affairs. The night was terrifyingly silent. Long Ao stood quietly on the peak of the mountain, looking at the endless void in front of him alone. Long Ao had already decided that no matter what the imperial city's invitation was for, he only had one purpose, and that was to form an alliance with the imperial city. Since going against the four forces, Long Ao had thought a lot about it. It would not be easy to defeat the four forces by relying on his and the dragon sect's strength alone. It was precisely because of this that Long Ao was ready to change his strategy and form an alliance with the imperial city to deal with the three forces. In fact, Long Ao's intention was very simple. That was to use dogs to fight dogs. When the time came for the imperial city to deal with the three forces, he would be able to reap the benefits. A cold wind blew. "Ao, it's been hard on you." Without even turning around, Long Ao already knew who had come. He helplessly shrugged and said, "Grandfather, if one day our Long family can be promoted to a first-class family, will the family be able to bear it?" Of course, Long Haosha didn't believe Long Ao's words. He smiled and said, I've always only had one wish, and that is for the family to be promoted to a third-class Long family or for a dragon martial artist to appear in the family. Now, it has finally come true. Dragon martial artist. If it was in the past, it would be an unreachable existence for the family. But now, he had become a genuine dragon martial artist. Longao knew very well in his heart that his grandfather was already very satisfied with this. Without continuing, Longao silently told himself that no matter what happened in the future, he must lead the family to become a Long family and move into the Dragon Valley. At that time, more and more dragon martial artists would appear in the family. Have you ever thought that with the current strength of the family and the sect, can you really destroy the four major powers? With regards to his grandfather's intentions, Longao naturally knew clearly. He firmly said, no matter how many difficulties lie ahead, I will continue to walk forward. I will definitely destroy the four great powers. There will definitely be a place for my dragon sect in the 9 provinces. Dragon sect. Hearing the 2 words dragon sect, Longao was very worried about one thing. That was, if his grandson would slowly forget about the family as the dragon sect grew stronger. Longao didn't want to see that kind of situation. Grandfather, no matter when, I will always be a disciple of the Long family. This, no matter what happens, will never change. Hearing Longao's words, Longao's body suddenly trembled. He naturally knew what Longao meant by these words. He was very emotional and said, grandfather believes in you. Longao's current achievements were no longer something the family could look up to. If Longao chose to distance himself from the Long family, then there was no doubt that the Long family would be attacked from all sides and fall into a state of eternal damnation. However, Longao believed in his grandson. Otherwise, as Aoa continued to grow, he would have started to distance himself from the family long ago. However, Aoa always thought about the family. Just from this point alone, Aoa would not abandon the family. Longao slowly left because he knew that his grandson would go to the Imperial City tomorrow. There were many things that he needed to think about and he couldn't disturb him. Just like that, Longao was the only person left on the mountain peak. He stood there quietly and looked at the endless dark void in front of him. He thought about all kinds of things in his mind, especially the reason why the Imperial City had invited him. What did the Imperial City mean? Although he didn't know what the Imperial City meant, Longao was certain that the Imperial City would definitely not do anything to him in the Imperial City. Chapter 478. Spirit Region of the 9 States. Imperial City. It wasn't the first time Longao had entered the Imperial City, but his identity was completely different. The last time he entered the Imperial City, Longao was still an enemy of the Imperial City. In order to save his beloved, he resolutely killed the Imperial City's young master, Duan Tianfeng. But this time, Longao's identity had undergone a huge change. He was no longer an enemy of the Imperial City, but an honored guest invited by the Imperial City. Longao's identity change made everyone unable to react, especially the disciples of the Imperial City. They didn't know what the sect meant and why they would invite an enemy to be a guest. What a ridiculous thing. Longao was definitely a celebrity in the Imperial City now. The moment he stepped into the Imperial City, he was recognized. In the blink of an eye, the news of Longao entering the Imperial City had spread. Anyone who received the news hurriedly came out, wanting to see the young man who fought against the 4 major forces. With a head full of blood-red hair, even his eyebrows were blood-red. Coupled with his resolute face, Longao looked like a majestic war god. He's really handsome. I told you that Longao is handsome, but you didn't believe me. Now do you believe me? Chrysanthemum, what are you so excited about? Who is Longao? Whether he's handsome or not has nothing to do with you. You're thinking too much. Bitch, I like him. Bite me. That's right. You're the one who's meddling in other people's business. Chrysanthemum did the right thing. When you meet someone you like, you have to confess. A love-struck fool would exist no matter where one went. Chrysanthemum was also quite beautiful. She liked powerful handsome guys the most. Now that she finally met one, how could she choose to give up so easily? Ignoring the ridicule and disdain coming from all around, Chrysanthemum directly blocked Longao's path and gently confessed, "Your big brother Longao, right?" "Big brother Longao?" Hearing Chrysanthemum's voice, whether it was Longao or the surrounding spectators, they all shuddered. They had seen domineering people, but they had never seen such a domineering person. Being confessed in public, Longao was also a little dumbfounded. He wasn't afraid of any difficulties or dangers, but this was the first time Longao had encountered a confession in broad daylight. He didn't know what to do about it. Although Longao was already the master of the dragon sect and had fought against the 4 major forces alone, in the end, Longao was still a young boy who was not even 20 years old. When had he ever encountered such a situation? "Brother Longao, I've admired you for a long time. I'm a straightforward person. I like you. I wonder if Brother Longao is willing to accept my love." Too valiant. Longao didn't dare to stay any longer. His body moved with the wind, and under everyone's shocked gazes, he disappeared without a trace. Longao's sudden departure had already made his attitude clear, but even so, Chrysanthemum was still unwilling to give up. It was not only Chrysanthemum, there were many girls around who liked heroes, but they were not as overbearing as Chrysanthemum. Somewhere in the Imperial City, Longao was speechless to the extreme. He had seen valiant people before, but he had never seen such a valiant person. He would rather fight with an expert than encounter such a thing. In the end, he was still a very pure person. "Mr. Longao, please. The master has been waiting for you for a long time." He wasn't surprised at all. No matter what, this was the Imperial City. If he didn't know that he had entered the Imperial City, then his position as the Imperial City's city lord would be a little too poor. Since he was already here, Longao didn't plan to hide. He followed the Imperial City's disciples to the Imperial City's headquarters. Inside the Imperial City, He and Kai were already sitting in the pavilion. When Longao arrived, there wasn't any anger or killing intent on their faces. It was as if Longao was really an honored guest of the Imperial City. One had to know that Longao had killed Duan Tianfeng. The entire 9 states knew about it, but He and Kai acted as if nothing had happened. One couldn't help but admire their acting skills. They had already reached the level of perfection. "Master Long, we are honored by your presence. Please forgive us for not coming out to meet you." Longao despised the fake smiles of the 2 people in his heart. However, he still had a smile on his face as he said, "This time, I am indebted to the Imperial City for your invitation." After entering the pavilion, Longao, He, and Kai sat down. They picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip. Longao smiled and said, "This is really good tea. Master Long is very knowledgeable. This is top-grade Biluo tune. It is extremely rare. I hope Master Long doesn't dislike it." "I wouldn't dare." Longao and the Imperial City were sworn enemies. When they met, it was either you die or I die. However, in this strange situation, the 2 sides seemed to be friends. He and Kai didn't mention it. Longao also didn't mention it. "Master Duan, may I know why you have invited me this time?" Longao went straight to the point. He didn't want to talk nonsense. He and Kai seemed to understand Longao's meaning. He smiled and said, "All right, since Master Long is a straightforward person, then I won't beat around the bush. Let's be frank. You killed my son, so you should be my mortal enemy." Longao didn't reply. As expected, the Imperial City didn't invite him to deal with him. Otherwise, he would have been attacked the moment he stepped into the Imperial City. There was no need to wait until now, unless the Imperial City had nothing better to do. For the sect, we can let bygones be bygones. "Master Long, I believe you have some understanding of the situation in the spirit realm of the 9 states. Since that's the case, I'll go straight to the point. My Imperial City is prepared to form an alliance with your dragon sect to deal with the other 3 forces. When the time comes, we will dominate the spirit realm of the 9 states. What do you think? Master Duan, let's put aside our grudges for now. I don't object to a temporary alliance. I just want to ask why the Imperial City chose me. The third-rank Long family, Nether Mansion, and Ethereal Palace seem to be stronger than the Dragon Sect. Regarding this point, Longao could not figure it out. He did not know what medicine the Imperial City was selling in their gourd. Master Long, you don't have to belittle yourself. Your potential and strength are there. I don't need to say more. I believe that if you and I work together, we can conquer the entire spirit realm of the 9 states. When the time comes, we will each take half of the spirit realm and mind our own business. What do you think? Since things had come to this point, Longao naturally wouldn't object. He nodded and said, "All right, since the Imperial City thinks so highly of the Dragon Sect, I agree on behalf of the Dragon Sect. We will now form an alliance to deal with the other 3 forces. I hope we can succeed." The 3 of them smiled. At this time, Duan Kai, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said, "Master Long, I don't know if you have heard of a place called the Soulbreak Valley." Longao shook his head. He had never heard of the Soulbreak Valley that Duan Kai mentioned. However, he was surprised. He didn't know why his father suddenly mentioned the Soulbreak Valley. Chapter 479. Master Dragon. Soulbreak Valley is a restricted area in the Imperial City. Even the core disciples are not allowed to enter as they wish. Hearing Duan Kai's words, Longao was even more curious. Since Soulbreak Valley was a restricted area in the Imperial City, why did Duan Kai tell him that he wanted him to enter Soulbreak Valley? Longao was more or less on guard. No matter what, Soulbreak Valley was a restricted area in the Imperial City. If he were to enter rashly, who knew what would happen? As if he could read Longao's mind, Duan Kai smiled and said, "Master Dragon, there is a super weapon in Soulbreak Valley, an extremely strong spiritual energy. If you can enter it, it should not be a problem for you to break through to the illusionary divine stage. Brother Duan, there is something I do not understand. Since Soulbreak Valley is a restricted area in the Imperial City, why does the Imperial City not enter Soulbreak Valley to retrieve the super weapon? There is a slim chance of survival." "What do you mean by that?" "To be honest, Master Dragon, Soulbreak Valley is very dangerous. If you are not careful, you will lose your life." Hearing this, Longao was even more surprised. After all, Duan Kai's meaning was very clear. Soulbreak Valley was very dangerous and even the people in the Imperial City might not be able to enter it. "Master Dragon, when we discovered Soulbreak Valley, we also tried to enter it. However, in the end, we were unable to obtain the treasures inside. However, a few seniors did manage to break through in Soulbreak Valley. Brother Duan, if you have anything to say, please speak your mind." "Master Dragon, to be honest, since we have already joined forces, I hope that you can become stronger. To be honest, with your current strength, you are no match for an illusionary divine stage martial artist." Longao didn't say anything and just sat there quietly. "That is why I hope that Master Dragon can enter Soulbreak Valley. If you can break through, that would be great." He snorted in his heart. Regarding Duan He and Duan Kai's intentions, how could Longao not know? There were treasures in Soulbreak Valley that could allow one to break through. However, it was very dangerous. If one was not careful, one would be doomed eternally. Duan Kai was very cunning. If he entered the Soulbreak Valley and survived, the alliance between the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect would continue. At most, he would feel unhappy. But if he died in there, then everything would be fine. He had to admit that Duan He and Duan Kai were indeed sly old foxes. They couldn't defeat him head-on, so they used such a despicable method. If it was someone else, they would definitely not agree, but Longao was a madman. He nodded and said, "If that is the case, then I will respectfully accept." "When can we enter?" "Anytime." "All right, then let's do it now. I'm going to enter the Valley of Death immediately. Come with me." Hearing that Longao wanted to immediately enter Soulbreak Valley, Duan Kai's face lit up with joy. He immediately got up and led Longao to Soulbreak Valley. Soulbreak Valley, forbidden area of the Imperial City. Ever since the Imperial City had found the Soulbreak Valley, very few people had entered it. Duan Kai didn't tell Longao the truth, because once you entered the Soulbreak Valley, you would die 9 times out of 10. Very few people were able to come out alive. It was because of this that Duan Kai came up with such a plan. Just as Longao had guessed, Duan Kai had 2 motives for letting him enter the Soulbreak Valley. Firstly, if Longao could come out alive, the alliance would continue. Secondly, if he couldn't come out alive, it would be considered as getting rid of a thorn in his side. Outside the Soulbreak Valley, Duan Kai suppressed the laughter in his heart and said indifferently, "Master Dragon, this time when you enter the Soulbreak Valley, you must be careful. I will wait here for your triumphant return." Longao couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense. After a few polite words, he entered the Soulbreak Valley. "Father, there are treasures and abundant spiritual energy in the Soulbreak Valley. If Longao enters and obtains the treasures, or if he really breaks through to the illusionary divine stage, wouldn't we be indirectly helping him?" Until now, Duan he still couldn't understand why his father would do this. This time, when his father invited Longao to enter the Imperial City, Duan he had already vehemently opposed it. Now, Duan he actually allowed Longao to enter the Soulbreak Valley. If Longao really broke through to the illusionary divine stage and obtained the treasures, wouldn't the Imperial City suffer a double loss? Duan he was very wary of Longao. Although Longao was just an illusionary martial artist, Longao's talent and potential were there for all to see. All along, Duan he had strongly advocated for Longao to be killed. Other than being wary of Longao's talent and potential, more importantly, Longao had killed his son, his most beloved son. Duan he would never forget this debt. However, Duan Kai waved his hands and said with a gloomy face, "I believe you know what the Soulbreak Valley represents. I don't believe that Longao can come out alive after entering the Soulbreak Valley. Father, that's enough. If you don't sacrifice your child, you can't trap the wolf. No one in the Imperial City can take away the treasures in the Soulbreak Valley. I believe that Longao can't do it either. This time, let's take a gamble." Duan he sighed deeply in his heart. He knew that since his father had already made up his mind, this matter was settled. Although Duan he also believed that Longao would not leave the Soulbreak Valley and would definitely die in there, he did not know why, but he had a bad premonition. It was as though Longao could really come out. "Father, since Longao is here personally, why don't we just kill him directly?" Duan he could not understand this point. There were many illusionary divine stage martial artists in the Imperial City. If they wanted to kill Longao, it would be a piece of cake. Why did they have to do this? Duan Kai said helplessly, "If we could, we would have killed him long ago. I received news that the Long family seems to think highly of Longao. If we don't kill him openly and choose to do it now, the Long family will blame us and the Imperial City will be in big trouble." Long family. Hearing his father mention the Long family, Duan he was shocked. He finally understood his father's intention. He wanted to make use of the Soulbreak Valley to kill Longao. By then, even if the Long family wanted to pursue the matter, it would be impossible. The reason why the Rank 3 Long family, Serene Hell Mansion and Ethereal Palace are not willing to take action is because of the Long family. However, if the 4 of us can work together, a small Longao will be nothing. It's a pity that we all have our own plans and no one wants to be the first to take action. This gave Longao an opportunity. Before Duan he could say anything, Duan Kai continued, "The Soulbreak Valley is a forbidden area in the Imperial City. Longao is willing to enter it and he can't blame us. By then, even if the Long family investigates the matter, they can't blame us. So, you should understand now, right?" Duan he nodded his head. If he still did not understand, he might as well commit suicide. It was because of this that Duan he prayed that Longao would die in the Soulbreak Valley. This way, everything would be fine. P.S. Let me tell everyone a piece of good news. After Xiaoju's efforts, from today until next Tuesday, there will be a 5-day trial with 10 chapters per day. Everyone, please tip and vote. Otherwise, if the results don't rise, Xiaoju will have no choice in the future. If everyone tips $1 or $2, it won't be much. Chapter 480. Soulbreak Valley, forbidden grounds of the Imperial City. The moment Longao stepped into the Soulbreak Valley, he was immediately shocked. He had to admit that the spiritual energy in the Soulbreak Valley was much more abundant than outside. However, there was a faint air current in the air. Once absorbed, it would directly devour one's soul. That's right, it was not an attack, but a direct devour. Longao did not dare to be careless. He immediately channeled all the energy in his body to resist the air current. Luckily, the air current was not very strong. As long as he was careful, he would not be sucked into his body. After heaving a sigh of relief, Longao slowly walked towards the depths of the Soulbreak Valley. Longao would definitely not believe everything that Duan He and Duan Kai said. There were only two reasons why he chose to enter the Soulbreak Valley. The first reason was that he had entered the Imperial City alone. If he did not agree, he did not know what would happen to the Imperial City. This was because Longao was 100% sure that there was an even stronger existence in the Imperial City. The second reason was that Longao wanted to try entering the Soulbreak Valley. Even if it was a matter of life and death, he wanted to train himself well. Longao was very clear that he had reached a bottleneck in his current realm. If he wanted to break through, he would have to gain enlightenment. Actually, there was another way, which was to train himself through life and death. Once he broke through to the second transformation of the 9 revolving reincarnation technique, he would naturally break through to the illusionary divine stage. Soulbreak Valley. If one did not enter it, one would not understand the meaning of the Soulbreak Valley. When Longao stepped into the Soulbreak Valley, he finally understood why it was called the Soulbreak Valley. The meaning of the Soulbreak Valley was simple. The air current in the surroundings would forcefully enter one's body and start to devour one's soul. Once one relaxed, the consequences would be unimaginable. Unknowingly, Longao had already entered the depths of the Soulbreak Valley. There were rocks everywhere and chilly winds blew, giving one a creepy feeling. Before Longao could react, countless spirits appeared around him. Their jade-green eyes stared at Longao as they rushed towards him. Damn! Longao cursed in his heart. He could clearly sense that the spirit army that suddenly appeared around him was all at the Nihility realm. It would be fine if there were only 1 or 2 of them, but the problem now was that there were tens of thousands of them, and there were even world emperors among them. What did this mean? The blood-sucking manic saber instantly slashed out, bringing with it the power of heaven and earth and the power of lightning tribulation. This was because both the power of heaven and earth and the power of lightning tribulation were the nemesis of ghosts. Wherever the saber light passed, it would always bring about a rain of blood, accompanied by miserable and angry roars. Longao didn't show the slightest bit of mercy because he knew that being merciful to the enemy was being cruel to oneself. If he relaxed even a little bit, he would be devoured by the spirit and die without a burial ground. In a short period of time, Longao had already killed thousands of spirits, but gradually, dozens of World Emperor spirits surrounded Longao. If it was 1 or 2 World Emperor spirits, Longao could still deal with them calmly. But the problem now was that 30 to 50 World Emperor spirits were swarming him. There were spirits everywhere. Longao couldn't dodge, except for a life and death battle. Kill. The blood-sucking manic saber in his hand didn't stop at all. Each slash was faster and stronger than the previous. The saber light was like lightning, constantly slashing in all directions. The spirits weren't afraid of death at all. They were still like moths to a flame, fiercely attacking Longao. Longao cursed again in his heart. He never thought that the spirits in Death Valley would be so powerful. Moreover, they were pouring in endlessly. If this was really the case, when would it end? From all directions, there was an endless stream of spirits, and the number of World Emperor spirits was increasing. Longao knew that if this continued, even if he was not devoured, he would be exhausted to death. What should I do? In Longao's mind, he kept thinking of all sorts of methods to see if there was any way to exterminate the spirits here. In desperation, Longao finally used his self-created martial technique, Heaven and Earth Sorrow. A terrifying tornado swept all the spirits around with the aura of heaven and earth. It was still the same sentence. If there were 1 or 2, 3 or 4, or even a dozen ghosts, once Longao used Heaven and Earth Sorrow, he could definitely eliminate them. But the problem now was that there were ghosts everywhere in all directions. There were countless of them. Even if heaven and earth sorrow couldn't devour the spirits around, Longao couldn't always use heaven and earth sorrow. In that case, it would be strange if he didn't die of exhaustion. Inside the tornado, the speed and strength of all the spirits were greatly reduced. Under the shroud of the aura of heaven and earth, Longao was like a god of war. He began to kill in all directions. Heaven and earth sorrow continued to devour the spirits, one after another. It was like a moth flying into a flame. In fact, what made Longao most depressed was not the endless stream of specters, nor was it the appearance of thousands of specters. What made Longao truly depressed was that he could not absorb these specters at all, nor could he refine them into soul slaves. In other words, he could only eliminate these so-called spirits directly. Longao was very clear in his heart that if he could devour these so-called spirits and refine them into power, or refine them into soul slaves, then his strength would definitely increase by several folds. It would also have indescribable benefits for the development of the sect. Thinking about it, if he could refine soul slaves, once he succeeded, this corpse slave army would be terrifying. Not daring to be the slightest bit careless, Longao had just used heaven and earth sorrow, and directly used heaven and earth sorrow for the second time. There was not the slightest gap between the first and the second. The tornado crazily swallowed the surrounding spirits, but the number of spirits did not decrease. There were too many of them. Endless spirits swarmed in from all directions. Longao knew very well that if this continued, the consequences would be unimaginable. Longao really couldn't figure out where these endless specters came from. Because as far as the eye could see, the surroundings were a stretch of desolation. To shoot a man, shoot the horse first. To capture the bandits, capture the king first. Longao knew that just killing the spirits wouldn't solve the root cause. The only way was to find the origin. Only then could he stop the spirits from coming out continuously. With a fierce slash, Longao's body also darted out. Everywhere he passed, there were roars and screams. Longao ignored all of them and increased his speed. Longao was constantly looking for the origin, but no matter how he looked, he was still unable to find where the origin was. Could it be that he was really going to be exhausted to death? Of course, Longao wouldn't choose to give up. He killed the spirits that swarmed in from all directions while searching for the origin. Chapter 481. An endless stream of ghosts emerged from all directions. They had no spiritual consciousness and only knew how to attack. It was precisely because of this that Longao seemed even more anxious. The more time he delayed, the more danger he would be in. The blood-sucking blade in his hand was still constantly slashing out, one blade after another. The blade light was endless. Just when Longao was extremely annoyed and didn't know what to do, he suddenly discovered that there was a strange pattern not far away, and these so-called ghosts emerged from this strange pattern. Strange pattern. Longao didn't hesitate at all. He arrived in front of the strange pattern in a few steps, and without hesitation, the blood-sucking blade in his hand had already fiercely slashed out. Boom! Before Longao could react, the blade light that he had just slashed out instantly rebounded, and his body was directly sent flying. His face instantly turned pale, and he finally stopped with great difficulty. After being rebounded by the strange pattern, Longao was seriously injured, and the surrounding ghosts took advantage of this opportunity. Startled, he tried to stop them in time, but it was still a step too late. 7 or 8 ghosts invaded his body and began to devour his soul. Fortunately, he had cultivated a soul attack, otherwise, just one attack would have almost taken Longao's life. The soul attack began to counterattack the 7 or 8 ghosts devouring. Barely stopping, Longao didn't continue to attack the ghosts. He fiercely forced away the ghosts around him and quickly arrived in front of the strange pattern again. This time, Longao didn't act rashly. The blood-sucking blade in his hand fiercely forced the ghosts around him to attack. Longao discovered that as long as the strange pattern flashed, ghosts would appear. Totem power! Totem power? Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao's heart suddenly rejoiced. Immediately communicating with the dragon seal space, Longao went straight to the point and asked, Long Fu, what is totem power? Master, the Sherpotian you met before was an expert of the Wan Shou sect, and totem power is unique to the Wan Shou sect. Wan Shou sect. Longao finally understood that the totem power belonged to the Wan Shou sect. In that case, why would the totem power appear in the Imperial City's Soul Break Valley? Although he didn't know, Longao was sure that the Wan Shou sect didn't know that there was totem power in the Imperial City's Soul Break Valley. Otherwise, the Wan Shou sect wouldn't let the Imperial City go. Long Fu, what should I do now? He had no idea what totem power was. It could be said that he knew nothing. Longao knew that he could only ask Long Fu for help now. No matter what, he had to first deal with the spirits that kept flashing out of the totem. Otherwise, if the spirits kept coming out, even if he was not swallowed by the spirits, he would be exhausted to death. Long to the totem power to the Wan to the snake totem power. Long Fu did not continue, but the meaning of his words was very clear. Longao wasn't a fool, of course he knew what Long Fu meant. Not daring to have the slightest hesitation, a dragon roar resounded. Long Chong's huge body suddenly appeared in the air. The dragon roar covered the whole area. Wherever the dragon breath passed, all the spirits disappeared. Fuck! Cursing in his heart. Longao never thought that Long Chong would be the nemesis of these spirits. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have gone through so much trouble, risking his life to kill these spirits. Feeling depressed, Longao stopped Long Chong. One man and one dragon stared at the totem on the ground. Totem. Until now, Longao still didn't know what kind of power the totem was. But from these spirits, he could see that the totem power of the Wan Shou sect was no small matter. Longao's soul entered the dragon seal space and asked straightforwardly, Long Fu, tell me about the totem. Know yourself and know your enemy, you can win every battle. Otherwise, if you don't even know what a totem is, how can you deal with a totem? Master, the totem is the unique power of the Wan Shou sect. According to legend, the totem is a kind of mysterious power that can be achieved through the union of man and beast. Strictly speaking, the totem power of the Wan Shou sect is similar to that of the Long family's dragon warriors. So that's how it is. According to Long Fu, the power of the totem was the same as the power of the dragon warriors. No wonder the Wan Shou sect wanted to replace the dragon clan. If the Wan Shou sect obtained the Dragon Valley, wouldn't they have the power of the dragon totem? In that case, how many people in the world would be able to resist the Wan Shou sect? Long Fu, what did you sense? Master, I just sensed that there is indeed a supreme treasure here. Moreover, it is quite evil. If you can obtain it and make good use of it, I believe that this treasure will be of great benefit to you. Longao's heart was immediately overjoyed. Regarding treasures, Longao never refused. Long Fu, how can I obtain this treasure? Master, this treasure is under the totem, but you have to be careful. If this treasure backfires on you, you will only become a puppet without the slightest chance of survival. Hearing this, Longao was startled. After leaving the dragon seal space, Longao didn't dare to be careless. After all, Long Fu had just said that this treasure was extremely evil. If it backfired on him, the consequences would be unimaginable. Because of this, Longao followed Long Fu's instructions and walked towards the totem step by step. He didn't forcefully break the totem, but relied on the dragon breath in his body and Long Chong's strength to suppress and break the totem's power. According to Long Fu, the strength of the dragon was the nemesis of the snake totem. Only this method could forcefully break the snake totem's power. Longao was very clear that his luck was really good. If it was other totems' power, such as the wolf totem or the tiger totem, Long Chong's strength alone wouldn't be able to break it. Sure enough. The dragon force fiercely collided with the snake totem, but there wasn't even the slightest collision. The snake totem was already broken, and a huge black passage appeared inside. Longao took a deep breath and glanced at Long Chong. He first sent Long Chong into the dragon seal space. At this time, Longao didn't have the slightest hesitation. He took a step forward and disappeared into the totem. Soulbreak Valley was very quiet. Chilly winds blew, like a mass grave, giving people a gloomy feeling. Longao entered Soulbreak Valley this time and accidentally encountered the totem's power. He didn't know whether it was a good or bad thing, but Longao already knew one thing, and that was the Myriad Beast Sect and the totem's power. In the end, the totem's power of the Myriad Beast Sect was similar to that of the Dragon Warrior with a long family. Strictly speaking, the Dragon Warrior with a long family was far above the Myriad Beast Sect's totem. No matter what, the Dragon Clan was one of the most powerful existences in the world. Ordinary totems couldn't compete with the Dragon Clan, unless it was a top-level totem. P.S. Thank you to the top 3 fans of the fan list for their tips. They are Chen Wen, Noble Shamate, brother holding hand and sister growing old together. Thank you for your tips. Little 9 thanks. Chapter 482. Below Soulbreak Valley. It was a dark space, like a huge palace. It was hard to breathe, it felt very stifling. Longao did not dare to be careless, because according to Long Fu's senses, this evil treasure could be taken away at any time. Master, since things have reached this point, I will not hide it from you. Nodding his head, Longao obviously knew what Long Fu was going to say. Master, if I'm not mistaken, this place should be left behind by the WN Shoseks experts, and the treasure here is called the Death Knell. Death Knell. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao's heart thumped. Not to mention the power of the Death Knell, just the name of the Death Knell was domineering enough. The Death Knell, born from heaven and earth, is extremely powerful. When the bell rings, death will descend. Long Fu, how can I obtain the Death Knell? Longao was somewhat impatient, because the temptation of the Death Knell was too great. It would be a lie to say that he did not want to obtain it. According to Long Fu's method, Longao had to find the Death Knell first. In the dark space, there was a huge stone placed in the middle. It was purple-red, emitting traces of strange qi. It was the so-called totem power. Divine Dao Aura. At this time, Longao seemed to have sensed something. He was very surprised, because he never thought that there would be Divine Dao Aura here. Of course, he knew what Divine Dao Aura meant. Longao was completely sure that the owner of this place was a Divine Dao expert. Moreover, it was a Divine Dao expert of the WN Shou sect, a Divine Dao expert with the snake totem power. Divine Dao experts were the strongest existences in heaven and earth. Longao was pleasantly surprised, a treasure left behind by a Divine Dao expert. He could imagine how powerful it would be. In the middle of the boulder, there was a small black bell the size of a fist. Without asking, Longao had already guessed that this was the Death Knell that Long Fu had mentioned. Long Fu's meaning was simple. If he wanted to take away the Death Knell, he had to borrow Long Chong's power. Otherwise, he would definitely be devoured by the Death Knell, and the consequences would be unimaginable. It was precisely because of this that Longao had successfully obtained the Death Knell with the help of the Dragon God's arm. Taking a deep breath, Longao poured his soul into the bell of death. At this moment, an ear-piercing bell sound rang out. It was as if the heaven and earth were about to mourn. It was very terrifying. Not to mention others, even Longao himself felt his heart tremble. It was hard to imagine what would happen if he suddenly used the Death Knell against an enemy. Dragon Clan's brat, you dare to steal my Death Knell, you really don't know life from death. This old man wants to see how you are going to take away my Death Knell. Hearing the sudden voice, Longao was shocked, because he had already guessed who the owner of this voice was. Without a doubt, it was the Thousand Beast Sect's Divine Dao expert, the owner of this place, the owner of the Death Knell. As expected. Just now, when Longao felt the Divine Dao Aura here, he had already guessed that this Divine Dao expert might not have completely fallen, and his remnant soul was still there. Now, it was indeed so. It would be a lie to say that he was not afraid. After all, the other party was a genuine Divine Dao expert. Even if it was just a remnant soul, its power was not small and could not be underestimated. At this time, a figure suddenly appeared on the boulder. It was an illusory old man, sitting quietly as if he had never left. What grade of Long family's disciple are you? 6th grade Long family's disciple. Humph, nonsense. The illusory old man suddenly burst out a powerful divine Tao aura, directly suppressing Longao, but Longao did not resist. Instead, he withdrew his heaven and earth aura. In this way, on the surface, he looked like he was in pain, but in reality, there was no substantial injury. Are you really a 6th grade Long family's disciple? I have no reason to lie to you, believe it or not. Seemingly very surprised, the old man asked, do you know who I am? Divine Tao. This time the old man was even more surprised, and said with admiration, a small 6th grade Long family can produce a genius like you, it's already very good. Boy, are you willing to worship me as your teacher? Without waiting for Longao to speak, the illusory old man continued, as long as you are willing to worship me as your teacher, I can teach you the totem Tao, and let you become a divine Tao expert, controlling the life and death of the world's spirit beasts. How about it? One had to admit that the illusory old man's offer was too tempting. An ordinary person would not be able to resist. It was precisely because of this that Longao was finally sure that the illusory old man in front of him was a divine Tao expert of WN Shou sect. There was no doubt about it. According to Long Fu, WN Shou sect and the Long family were natural enemies. WN Shou sect wanted to occupy Dragon Valley and form the Dragon Totem clan of WN Shou sect, but this matter could not be realized. In any case, the Long family and the Dragon clan were too powerful. To defeat the Long family was not an easy matter. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely agree. Worshipping a divine Tao expert as their teacher was something that everyone dreamed of. But Longao was not a human. He shook his head and said, I am the master of Dragon sect. I cannot worship you as my teacher, please forgive me. The illusory old man was not angry as expected. He was very surprised and asked, Dragon sect? You mean to say that you have established a dragon sect? As everyone knew, there was only one Long family in the world, and all the disciples of the Long family were not allowed to start a new sect. Once they were discovered by the Long family, they would be directly killed. There was no room for negotiation. It was precisely because of this that the illusory old man was very surprised. He did not know whether the young man in front of him was crazy or not. He actually dared to go against the Long family and establish a so-called dragon sect. This was completely going against the Long family. Forgive me for not being able to tell you this. I can only say one thing. The enmity between WN Shou sect and Long family has nothing to do with me. Longao was not a fool. He did not want to be a fish in the moat, whether it was WN Shou sect or Long family. They were not people that he could contend against. If the two clans fought and he was implicated, wouldn't he cry to death? Nodding his head, the illusory old man said, You are right, since you have established Dragon sect, the enmity between WN Shou sect and Long family will not affect you, but this time you trespassed into my forbidden area and took away my death knell. I want to ask, how do you intend to settle this debt? Senior, this time I entered Soulbreak Valley because I had no other choice. Since I was able to come here and obtain your death knell, it means that we are fated. Since we are fated, this debt will be much easier to settle. What do you say? Ha 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 ha, ha ha ha. Hearing this, the illusory old man suddenly burst into laughter. His face was full of praise. Chapter 483. Kid, I won't kill you just because of your courage. Hearing this, Longao let out a long sigh of relief. Although he was very confident in his own strength, Longao had self-awareness. With his current strength, it was simply impossible to be a match for a Supreme Tao martial artist, even if the Supreme Tao martial artist in front of him only existed in a soul state. Supreme Tao was Supreme Tao, the strongest existence in the world was no joke. Kid, since you don't want to be my disciple, then you can't get my inheritance, don't you regret it? Without waiting for Longao to speak, the illusory old man continued, I can guarantee that as long as you can get my inheritance, I will make you a Supreme Tao warrior. I want to step onto the Supreme Tao warrior myself. Nodding his head, the illusory old man did not continue to talk nonsense and said, in that case, I won't force you. Kid, since you already know about WN Shou sect, then I'll get straight to the point. I'm a heavenly god from WN Shou sect Snake Totem clan. I accidentally fell and had no choice but to seal myself here. Heavenly God. Hearing the other party's identity, Longao was shocked, because he never thought that the illusory old man in front of him would be a heavenly god. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, it would be hard to believe. The 5 realms of supreme Tao were nihility God, spirit condensation, human God, earth God, and heavenly God. In other words, heavenly God was already standing at the peak of martial arts, the pinnacle of the continent. Because of this, Longao was a little shocked. The snake totem supreme Tao warrior in front of him was actually at the peak of martial arts, a heavenly God. Senior, you want me to help you find your inheritance? That's right. For so many years, I have always hoped that the disciples of WN Sho sect, especially the snake totem disciples, could come in, but after so many years, I still couldn't get my wish. Helplessly shrugging his shoulders, Longao did not speak, because luck played a big part in this. Kid, my request is very simple. As long as you can help me find my inheritance, I will give you the death knell. How about it? The illusory old man had already taken a step back. Such a good thing was hard to come by. But Longao didn't immediately agree. Instead he said, Senior, if you want me to bring the inheritance to the WN Sho sect, I can tell you now, I can't do it, but I can return the death knell to you. Although he was extremely reluctant, Longao didn't want to provoke the WN Sho sect, not to mention it was the inheritance of a heavenly God. If the WN Sho sect found out about this, it would be very difficult for him to escape. Longao was not an idiot. Of course, he would not play with fire. It was because of this that Longao had no choice but to give up on the death knell. The illusory old man seemed to be a little surprised, but he immediately understood the other party's meaning and nodded in understanding, saying, When I was expelled from the WN Sho sect, strictly speaking, I was no longer a member of the WN Sho sect. Brat, I only have one request. Help me choose a suitable successor, no matter who it is. No matter who it is. Could it be that even the disciples of my dragon sect can do it? All right, I'll leave the inheritance in your hands. Within a year, you must find a successor. You trust me so much. I trust you. As for why, you don't need to ask me. I don't know either. Perhaps this is what they call fate. Fate. Hearing the word fate, Longao nodded and did not waste any more words. Instead, he said, All right, I promise you. As long as I find a suitable successor, I will not delay. You've already reached the pinnacle of the illusionary realm? With regards to this, Longao did not hide anything. This was because with the other party's strength, it was impossible for him not to see through his true strength. He said helplessly, I've been stuck in this realm for a long time and have been unable to break through to the illusionary divine stage. If Longao's words were heard by others, it was unknown whether or not they would suffer the fiercest contempt. No matter what, Longao's cultivation was known to all. It seemed that he had not been stuck in the pinnacle of the illusionary realm for too long. I've already sensed your body. It's very strange. I've never seen a body like yours before, so I can't help you break through. I understand. Longao did not feel unsatisfied. After all, he was very clear about his desolate body. Especially after cultivating the 9 revolving reincarnation technique, if he wanted to break through, he would have to break through to the 2nd revolving of the 9 revolving reincarnation technique. Otherwise, even a martial artist of the divine stage might not be able to help him. Lad, this is my inheritance. I hope you can find a suitable successor. Receiving the inheritance crystal, Longao nodded and said, Don't worry, I will. Until now, Longao still could not believe that he had met a godly spirit who had passed him his inheritance and hoped that he could find a successor. Longao had already decided that the Shinto inheritance would wait until he returned to the sect. He would definitely find a suitable person to accept the inheritance. If that was the case, he believed that in a few years, the first Shinto warrior would appear in the dragon sect. At that time, the 4 major forces would be nothing in front of him. Lad, I've already passed you the godly spirit inheritance and I've also given you the death knell. You have to help me settle this matter. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Nodding his head, Longao did not say anything else. Following which, Longao left the dark space. At this moment, the illusory old man suddenly laughed coldly. His laughter was filled with coldness and cunning. After waiting for so many years, I finally have the chance to go out. Ha 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 ha. After saying that, the illusory old man's spirit disappeared without a trace. After a short while, Longao had already left the dark space and returned to the Soulbreak Valley. The snake totem had already been destroyed, and it was impossible for the ghost to continue to appear. However, Longao did not leave immediately. No matter what, it had not even been a day since he entered the Soulbreak Valley. If he swaggered out like this, the Imperial City would definitely not let him go. Although Duan Kai had made it sound good, he had allowed him to enter the Soulbreak Valley to break through. If he really broke through to the illusionary divine stage, Duan Kai would be the first person to not let him off. It would be a lie if he said that he was not tempted by the inheritance of a godly spirit. After all, an enlightened god martial artist was already considered to be at the peak of martial arts. However, Longao was worried that if he were to inherit the inheritance, he would not be able to break through to the enlightened god stage. Wouldn't that mean that he would never be able to reach the peak of the illusionary divine stage? Longao's dream had always been to break through to the peak of martial arts. Therefore, regardless of whether it was the inheritance of a godly spirit or a great emperor, he rejected all of them. If not, he would not have waited until now. Chapter 484. In the end, Longao decided to give up on the divine Tao inheritance. Longao began to ponder who he should give the divine Tao inheritance to. Longao was a normal person. Of course, he would be selfish. Of course, he would want to give the divine Tao inheritance to Aoshue, his grandfather, or his parents. However, Longaogang was very clear about one principle, which was that the divine Tao inheritance had to find the right person, so that it could display the greatest effect. Longao did not continue to think about the divine Tao inheritance. Instead, he began to absorb the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual qi. Although the 9-cycle reincarnation technique had not broken through, Longao was still very clear about the change in quantity. Outside the Soulbreak Valley, in the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Duan Kai and Duan He seemed to be impatient. In the eyes of Duan He and Duan Kai, the chances of Longao coming out alive from the Soulbreak Valley this time was almost zero. However, the two were still a little worried and did not leave for 3 days. Father, do you think Longao can come out? 55. Duan Kai actually wanted to say 19, but at this time, the two's faces suddenly changed. It was as if they had seen the most unbelievable thing in the world. Longao came out. Looking at the young man coming out of the Soulbreak Valley, both Duan He and Duan Kai were dumbfounded. The two of them did not know what had happened. Longzong, you came out? Nonsense, Longao cursed the two in his heart. It was all due to luck that he survived this disaster. Otherwise, he would have been completely cheated by the two of them. Although he was cursing in his heart, Longao's face was still calm. This was because he knew that if he wanted to ally with the Imperial City, he would first deal with the other 3 forces. When the time was right, it would not be too late to deal with the Imperial City. The two of you, don't you want me to come out? We do, we do. We are really happy to see Master Long come out. Lying through his teeth, Longao's heart fiercely despised him. At this time, Longao seemed to think of something and said, the two of you, I didn't find any treasure in the Soulbreak Valley. The heaven and earth spirit qi is very abundant, but I still haven't broken through, sigh. With a deep sigh, Duan Kai and Duan He heaved a sigh of relief after hearing that Longao had not broken through to the illusionary divine stage. No matter what, Longao's successful escape from the Soulbreak Valley was already a huge blow to them. If Longao were to continue breaking through to the illusionary divine stage, the two of them would have no choice but to die. Master Dragon, since you haven't found the treasure, it means that your destiny hasn't arrived yet. You can't force it. Longao almost laughed out loud in his heart. He had seen pretentious people before, but he had never seen such a pretentious person. It was too fake, but Longao endured it in the end. The 3 of them returned to the pavilion and sat down. Master Dragon, since you have yet to reach the illusionary divine stage, why don't we talk about the alliance first? Old fox. Longao nodded his head and said, no problem. I would like to ask the two of you about the alliance between the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect. What are your thoughts? Duan Kai and Duan He cursed in their hearts. Duan Kai smiled and said, Master Dragon, I believe you know the situation of the four great organizations. It is impossible for them to completely destroy the Class 3 Dragon family, Serene Hell Mansion and Ethereal Palace. Longao nodded his head. He knew this very well. Longao did not speak and only listened quietly. He knew that Duan He and Duan Kai had already thought of a plan. Otherwise, they would not have sat down to talk to him. Master Dragon, what I mean is very simple. If the Dragon Sect wants to join forces with the Imperial City to deal with the other three great organizations, they have to do one thing first. What is it? It is very simple. Since Master Dragon has already decided to enter the spirit domain of the 9 states, it is better to do it sooner rather than later. With the Imperial City as a cover, I believe that the Dragon Sect will be able to enter the spirit domain of the 9 states in less than a month. Longao immediately understood what Duan Kai meant. It was very simple. The Dragon Sect would move to the spirit domain of the 9 states. As for the location, it would be the so-called City of Sin. There was no problem with moving, but Longao had to consider the consequences. Once the Dragon Sect entered the spirit domain of the 9 states, there would be no way out. By then, if the three great organizations and the Imperial City turned against him, he would be attacked from both sides. The consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, Longao did not answer immediately. Duan Kai and Duan He were not anxious at all. They looked at each other and saw a trace of coldness in each other's eyes. If he agreed, it would be very dangerous. The Dragon Sect could be doomed at any time. If he chose not to agree, he would lose a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Should he choose to agree or not? Longao did not know what to do. Master Dragon, do you have any concerns? Yes, the strength of the three great organizations is there. If I rashly enter the spirit domain of the 9 states, the three great organizations will catch me like a turtle in a jar. I have no way to resist. Longao spoke the truth. Because things had reached this point, if there was a slight mistake, things would become very troublesome. Moreover, the Imperial City was still unknown. In the end, Longao did not want to take the risk. If he was alone, he would not care. At worst, he would die. However, the problem now was different. He had the entire Dragon Sect behind him. Once there was a problem, tens of thousands of people would be killed. He did not dare to take this gamble. Duan Kaisin cursed in his heart, but his face was very calm as he said, Dragon Sect, you don't have to worry about this. Later, I will inform the world that the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect have formed an alliance. If that's the case, Dragon Sect Master, can you relax a little? Scratching his heart, Longao finally gritted his teeth and said, okay, I agree. However, I have 3 conditions. Otherwise, there is nothing to discuss. Master Dragon, you are too much. We are now in an alliance, not relying on each other. What right do you have to raise 3 conditions? Waving his hand to stop Duan He, Duan Kai said, say it. I hope Master Dragon will not go too far. Otherwise, even if we do not form an alliance, we will not agree. The more Duan He and Duan Kai acted like this, the happier Longao was. Because only in this way could he be sure that the Imperial City was really willing to form an alliance with him this time, and not trying to set him up. However, he had to be vigilant. The first condition is that the Dragon Sect must enter the spirit domain of the 9 states and the Imperial City must give up a teleportation formation. This cannot be refused. Otherwise, I would rather not form an alliance. Longao had already thought it through. As long as the Dragon Sect entered the spirit domain of the 9 states, they must first have a teleportation formation. Otherwise, he would rather not enter. Because without a teleportation formation, once the battle started, it would be a big problem to leave safely. He had to think of a way out. P.S. The 6th chapter has been delivered. There is an urgent matter. The remaining 4 chapters will be delivered one by one after the wee hours of the morning. Everyone, please send me your tickets and tips. Chapter 485. No problem. Duan Kai didn't even think about it and agreed. It was because of this that Longao was very surprised. He never thought that Duan Kai would agree so quickly. Master Long, tell me the remaining 2 conditions. Duan Kai seemed to have expected Longao to raise this condition. Otherwise, Longao would be too weak. The second condition is that if the Imperial City dares to betray the Dragon Sect, I will step into the Imperial City in the future and slaughter everyone. As for the third condition, once we destroy the 3 forces, we will each take half of the world. The normal spirit domain will also belong to the Dragon Sect. There are no problems with the 3 conditions. In that case, the matter of our alliance is settled. What do you think? No problem. Longao didn't continue to stay. After all, the matter of the alliance could be big or small. He had to make arrangements as soon as he returned. Looking at the figure gradually leaving, Duan he couldn't understand. He asked, Father, are you really going to ally with Longao? Duan he couldn't forget that Longao killed his son. If his father didn't give him a look, Duan he believed that he would have found someone to deal with Longao. He wouldn't have waited until now. How could Duan Kai not know what his son was thinking? It would be a lie to say that he didn't want revenge. But Duan Kai knew that this wasn't the best time. I know the hatred in your heart. I can tell you clearly that I also want revenge, but now is not the time. Why is that? With the Imperial City's strength, killing Longao isn't difficult. But as the Imperial City's city lord, you have to consider the interests of the Imperial City first and not your own. Do you understand? Duan he seemed to have thought of something, but he still couldn't let go of this hatred. No matter what, his most beloved son was killed in the Imperial City. This was something that he couldn't swallow. No matter how much you can't let go of the hatred in your heart, you have to remember that we have to ally with the Dragon Sect and deal with the other 3 forces first. Father. Waving his hand, Duan Kai didn't give Duan he any chance to refute and said coldly, this matter has been decided. You must always remember one thing, and that is that you will always be the Imperial City's city governor. After leaving the Imperial City, Longao did not linger. However, as soon as he left the Imperial City, he ran into a familiar face, who could be considered a friend. It was because of this person that Longao seemed to be surprised. Longao, come with me. I have something to tell you. Nodding, Longao left with Long Chen. With their strength and speed, no one could follow them. At the peak of a mountain in the spirit region of the 9 states. Longao, I'm looking for you this time mainly because I want to fight with you. A battle? He seemed to be a little surprised because he had already shown mercy in the previous battle. It was impossible for Long Chen to not know that with his current strength, he was no match for him. Since that was the case, why did Long Chen still want to fight with him? Hey! At this time, Longao suddenly discovered that Long Chen, who he hadn't seen for several months, seemed to have made a breakthrough in his cultivation. From a world king, not only had Long Chen broken through to the world sovereign realm, but he had also reached the so-called peak of the world sovereign realm. But even so, with the difference in strength between him and Long Chen, even if Long Chen's cultivation had broken through to the peak of world emperor, he still wouldn't be his match. Longao knew this, so it was impossible for Long Chen to not know. Long Chen's actions left Longao a little confused. Longao, I've already gone to the Long family and entered the Dragon Clan's ancestral hall to temper myself. To be honest, I've already awakened my innate supernatural ability, so I want to fight with you. So that's how it was. Longao wasn't surprised at all because Long Chen had already said that those on the dragon rankings had the qualifications to enter the Dragon Clan's ancestral hall to awaken their innate supernatural ability. But there were very few people who could awaken their innate supernatural ability. Longao never imagined that Long Chen would be able to awaken his innate supernatural ability. This in itself already proved just how great Long Chen's talent was. Longao was even more certain that after Long Chen successfully awakened his innate supernatural ability, he would be valued by the Long family and his status would instantly skyrocket. Longao didn't feel the slightest bit of envy or jealousy. Instead, he was truly happy for Long Chen. Longao nodded. He didn't refuse. After all, exchanging pointers wasn't necessarily a bad thing for them. Longao, before we fight, there is something I need to tell you. When I went to the Long family this time, I also asked around about the Long family's plans for you. I finally found some clues. Thank you for the trouble. Longao was overjoyed. He was now very concerned about the Long family's situation. No matter what, the Long family was the most powerful existence in the world. It wasn't something that the four major forces could compare to. Longao, I heard that the Long family has two voices. The first one wants to capture you and kill you on the spot. In their opinion, not only did you become a dragon warrior, you even established the dragon sect. You don't put the Long family in your eyes. Longao had already guessed what Long Chen had said. As expected, there were many people in the Long clan who didn't like the establishment of the dragon sect. But what could they do? Longao knew that since he had decided to establish the dragon sect, he wasn't afraid of the Long family. Otherwise, he wouldn't have established the dragon sect so decisively. The second voice wants to kill you. Moreover, they want to observe you carefully. Once you can establish a place for yourself in the world of the 9 provinces, the Long family won't do anything to you. They might even focus on nurturing you. Focus on nurturing me? Longao sneered in his heart. He didn't need the Long family's nurturing. He was very disgusted with the Long family's rule. Longao was very disgusted with it. The Long family occupying the Dragon Valley was one thing, but they actually made it clear that disciples below rank 3 were not allowed to become dragon warriors. Who would be willing to accept such a rule? It was precisely because of this that Longao decided to start anew and establish the dragon sect. In the future, if possible, he had to leave the Long clan. No matter what, Long Qiong had obtained the divine dragon pearl. If Long Qiong became the dragon god of the dragon clan, then everything would be easy. Longao, the Long family has decided to observe you first. Therefore, your performance is very important. I don't care what you think, but I want to give you a piece of advice. No matter what happens, you have to strengthen yourself first. Otherwise, everything will be nonsense. You're fine alone, but you have to think about your family. Unless it's a last resort, it's best not to go against the Long family. It won't do you any good. Longao nodded. How could he not know about Long Chen's concern? He naturally understood what Long Chen was trying to say. P.S. I wrote a chapter in 2 hours. I'm too sleepy. Little 9 should sleep first and wake up early tomorrow. There are still 3 chapters left. There will be a total of 13 chapters tomorrow. Chapter 486. Longao didn't continue asking, and Long Chen didn't continue either. What needed to be said had been said. Next, it was their third battle. Long Chen had lost the first battle and the second battle. Although he had already treated Longao as a friend, he still felt uncomfortable after losing so many times. Because of this, Long Chen had gone to the Long family's ancestral hall for the baptism. His bloodline had just awakened and his cultivation had reached the peak of the Universe Emperor realm. Hence, he immediately came back to challenge Longao. How could Longao not know what Long Chen was thinking? Longao, I hope you will not hold back in this battle. I won't hold back. Long Chen didn't continue to talk nonsense. At this time, Long Chen's whole body had already rushed out. As for his dragon companion, Long Chen didn't mention it from the beginning to the end because he wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew that his dragon companion was no match for Longao's dragon companion. As for this point, it was also the most depressing thing for Long Chen. In the blink of an eye, Longao and Long Chen were engaged in a fierce battle. After more than 10 rounds, there was no clear winner. After more than 10 rounds, Longao was shocked. No wonder Long Chen was so confident. It turned out that his strength had increased greatly. Peak of the Universe Emperor realm. All along, Longao had not taken any martial artists below the illusionary divine stage seriously, even if they were peak Universe Emperors. However, it was different now. He had created his own martial technique, Sorrow of Heaven and Earth. With Longao's body as the center, a tornado swept out instantly. Seeing this, Long Chen was shocked. In the end, he did not use his divine ability. In fact, Long Chen's intention was simple. He wanted to see if he could defeat Longao without using his divine ability. However, Long Chen was still in a tragic situation. He was swept by the tornado. The aura of heaven and earth suppressed him. Long Chen's speed and strength were restricted. The aura of heaven and earth disappeared, and so did sorrow of heaven and earth. In fact, Long Chen had already lost without using his divine ability. Both Longao and Long Chen knew this clearly. Long Chen was helpless. He had already lost this battle. He had lost so quickly. If he hadn't used his innate ability, he would have been a corpse by now. Longao, the innate ability I've awakened is called acceleration. As he spoke, a powerful aura erupted from Long Chen's body, and an illusory dragon shadow appeared behind him. Immediately after, Long Chen's speed increased by more than 2 times. What kind of concept was that? Longao was shocked. He was very wary of Long Chen's innate ability to speed up the awakening of his bloodline. After all, speed could often defeat one's strength and realm. Longao did not waste his effort. He knew very well that unless he used his innate superpower, Dragon Roar, it was almost impossible for him to defeat Long Chen. Speed. Longao was very frustrated when it came to speed. Once he encountered an enemy with extremely fast speed, he would be somewhat restricted. Longao's body also erupted with a dragon's breath, followed by a dragon's roar. A giant dragon phantom appeared behind Longao. It was the innate ability, Dragon's Roar. Innate ability. Long Chen, who had successfully awakened his innate ability, naturally knew what Longao was using. It was precisely because of this that Long Chen was almost scared to death. He had no idea what was going on. As everyone knew, the only way for a disciple of a Long family to awaken his innate ability was to enter the ancestral hall for baptism. Then, there would be a 1% chance to see if he could successfully awaken his innate ability. In other words, even if a disciple of a Long family could enter the ancestral hall for baptism, not everyone would be able to awaken their innate ability. 1 in 1,000 was already very good. One could imagine how difficult it was to awaken one's innate ability. Long Chen was sure that Longao definitely did not go to a Long family, nor did he enter the ancestral hall for baptism. If that was the case, how did Longao awaken his innate ability? Long Chen couldn't figure it out. Long Chen didn't dare to think about it because it was beyond his scope of knowledge. Even so, Long Chen didn't choose to give up. Under the acceleration of his innate ability, his speed instantly increased by 2 times. He was like a ghost that couldn't be seen at all. If an ordinary person were to fight Long Chen, they would definitely be defeated or even killed instantly. However, Longao was different. He had the innate ability, Dragon's Roar. A strange power enveloped Long Chen instantly. Long Chen's body was locked. He could even feel that the flow of time around him had changed. What was going on? It could be said that the innate ability, Dragon's Roar, was the nemesis of speed. No matter how fast you were, as long as you were enveloped by the innate ability, Dragon's Roar, your body would be instantly frozen. Longao, I've lost. Long Chen didn't continue the battle because he knew clearly that even if he continued the battle, he would definitely lose. Since that was the case, he might as well admit defeat as soon as possible. Long Chen's heart was filled with unwillingness. However, he knew that he would never be able to catch up to Longao in this lifetime. This wasn't just a matter of talent and potential. It was because Longao was too mysterious. He had awakened his innate ability for no reason. Longao, I'd like to ask, how did you awaken your innate ability? Longao didn't hide anything from Long Chen. Longao smiled and said, it was a fluke. The last time you talked to me about the innate ability, I've been trying to awaken it since I went back. I accidentally succeeded. Speaking of which, I have to thank you. Hearing this, Long Chen was dealt a blow. In order to awaken his innate ability, he had traveled thousands of miles to visit his Long family. He had been ridiculed and ridiculed. Finally, he had succeeded. However, Longao didn't have to put in much effort at all. He had already achieved what Long Chen had painstakingly wanted to do. Comparisons were odious. Long Chen shrugged his shoulders helplessly. He sighed and said, "I admit defeat. You're really powerful. Longao, I can say with certainty that with your talent and growth speed, in addition to your current bloodline multiplication divine ability, you'll definitely reach the divine realm in less than 10 years. At that time, who will be your opponent?" Longao smiled and didn't attack Long Chen. If Long Chen knew that he had the inheritance of the divine Dao realm in his hands, Long Chen might even have the heart to die. "Long Chen, can you tell me about the Long family when I go to the Long family?" Longao really wanted to know about the Long family. However, he didn't have the slightest channel. Now that Long Chen had gone there, he believed that Long Chen had a certain understanding of the Long family. No matter what, Longao had a feeling that he wouldn't know when he would start a war with the Long family in the future. Chapter 487. Longao and Long Chen sat on the ground. At the peak of the mountain, a cold wind blew. "Longao, what do you think of your strength?" Although he didn't know what Long Chen meant by this question, Longao still answered honestly, "It's nothing in the continent, but among my peers, I should be able to rank in the top 10. Hearing this, Long Chen didn't take it for granted. Instead, he sighed deeply. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be that his strength couldn't surpass his peers? Shaking his head helplessly, Long Chen said bitterly, "If I didn't go to the Long family this time, I would also believe that with your strength and potential, you could surpass your peers without any problems." But now, after thinking for a while, Long Chen continued, "Long family. Let's not talk about the experts first. Just the younger generation alone, there are many people who are stronger than you and me." F***ck Longao cursed in his heart. Of course, he knew that the Long family was strong. There was no doubt about this. After all, this was publicly known. Even if he didn't admit it, it was useless. However, Longao had always been confident in his own strength. With this kind of cultivation speed, he always thought that even if he couldn't become the best in the world, it shouldn't be a problem for him to rank in the top 10. But now, "Longao, I won't hide it from you. When I went to the Long family this time, I was ridiculed and ridiculed. Because in their eyes, not to mention families like ours, they wouldn't even put a second-grade Long family disciple in their eyes." Before Longao could speak, Long Chen continued, "If I didn't succeed in awakening my bloodline this time, I believe that I would have been kicked out of the dragon ranking." Regarding this point, Longao had already thought of it. Without needing Long Chen to say more, Longao had already guessed that the Long family's dragon ranking wasn't as simple as the outside world said. A world king or world emperor wanted to be on the dragon ranking? Longao knew very well that with Long Chen's strength, it was impossible for him to be on the list, even if he was last. If it wasn't for Long Chen's bloodline awakening, not to mention being on the list, it would be a big problem for him to come back unscathed. "Longao, the Long family has already given me the best time limit. 1 year. 1 year later, I will accept the challenges of all the disciples of the Long family. If I succeed, I will continue to be on the dragon rank, and if I fail, I will fail." Long Chen did not continue, but the helplessness in his words was obvious. Longao also let out a deep sigh. As the saying goes, there will always be someone better than you. What he saw now was just the tip of the iceberg of the continent. The peak of the World Emperor realm, in the eyes of the outside world, could only be considered as a joke, an enormous joke. Longao noticed that Longao was touched. He suddenly smiled and said, "Longao, I absolutely believe in your talent and potential. However, Longao, I want to give you a piece of advice. If you have the chance in the future, if you go to the Long family, you must not casually provoke them. Otherwise, you will be in a lot of trouble." "I will not go to the Long family." Longao had already decided that no matter what happened, he would not go to the Long family. Not to mention other things, just the fact that he established the dragon sect, he believed that the Long family would not let him go. Long Chen had just said that there were 2 voices in the Long family. A large portion of them did not want to deal with him, but after all, there was still a small portion that wanted to kill him. If he really went to the Long family, he knew what the result would be. Forget it, it's still early. At least the Long family won't deal with you now. In a year's time, I believe that you can rely on your own strength to occupy a position on the dragon ranking. Long Chen smiled bitterly. Although he was very confident, when he thought of the countless geniuses in the Long family and the fact that there was no lack of monstrous geniuses, Long Chen felt a deep sense of helplessness. Longao, I still have something to do. I will go into seclusion to cultivate for a year. After a year, I will come and find you again. After saying that, Long Chen got up and left quickly. In a short while, he had already disappeared without a trace. Longao did not leave immediately. Instead, he sat quietly on the mountain peak. Long family, dragon ranking, Long Chen, innate ability. Longao went through all of them in his mind. Longao realized that he seemed to have thought too simply about all of this. This was because no matter which voice in the Long family, he actually did not have the slightest right to speak. In the end, he was just a chess piece. Unless he could reach the so-called divine path, especially the heavenly god realm, he would always be a chess piece. There was only one way to get rid of his status as a chess piece, and that was to have powerful strength. Longao stood up and stretched. Just as Long Chen said, the Long family would not deal with him for the time being. In other words, he had enough time to improve his strength. On the day he broke through to the divine path, he wanted to see how the Long family would deal with him. Longao got up and left, preparing to return to the dragon sect. This time, Longao had to be very careful in forming an alliance with the imperial city. After all, it was better to be safe than sorry. No one knew what the imperial city was up to. However, the main reason why Longao agreed to the alliance was that he had originally planned to move the dragon sect to the 9-state spirit domain Sin City. This was because only then could he slowly infiltrate the 9-state spirit domain. Even if there was a war in the future, he would not have to worry about anything. Moreover, the imperial city had sent out a teleportation array. As long as he firmly grasped this teleportation array, he believed that even if he was injured in the future, he would be able to leave immediately. Rank 3 Long family. Seeing that Long Chen had returned and had successfully awakened his bloodline, the entire Long family was jubilant. This was because this was the first rank 3 disciple of the Long family to awaken his bloodline. In an instant, Long Chen's status in the Long family had risen. Great Hall. Uncle, I have returned this time to prepare for seclusion for a year. I hope that no one will disturb me within this year. Furthermore, I would like to advise Uncle that you cannot provoke the Longao. Perhaps the 4 major forces do not care about the Longao's strength now, but in less than 10 years, I can guarantee that the Longao will grow to a very high level. At that time, Long Chen did not continue speaking, but the meaning in his words was very clear. Chen, we will talk about this in the future. You have successfully awakened your innate ability this time. It is a blessing for the family. The old ancestor has urged you many times. You should go quickly. Long Chen deeply sighed. He knew that his uncle did not take his words to heart. If the family provoked the Longao, they would definitely be punished in the future. At that time, even if he was friends with the Longao, it would be difficult to deal with the aftermath. Without saying anything more, Long Chen turned around and left. After all, the old ancestor had summoned him and he could not afford to be negligent. P.S. Damn, Chen when in the group just said that no one could surpass him in gifts. He was embarrassed to continue gifting. Brothers, is there anyone who can surpass him? Little Ju is very grateful. Chapter 488. Dragon Sect. Longao had just returned to Dragon Sect and immediately started looking for a suitable candidate. Longao knew clearly that the earlier he received the inheritance, the earlier he could break through to Great Emperor or even Divine Tao. There were millions of disciples in Dragon Sect. If he were to look for them one by one, who knew how long it would take? Because of this, Longao prepared to choose a suitable candidate from the upper echelons. The first batch was Dugu Bai, Xia Jun, Long Potian, and the others. But after selecting and selecting, Longao still could not find a suitable candidate. Actually, the divine Tao inheritance could be given to anyone. However, the right person would get twice the result with half the effort. For example, Dugu Bai wasn't suitable for the divine Tao inheritance. Even if he could get the inheritance, he could only reach Great Emperor realm. However, if Long Potian was suitable for the inheritance, he might be able to break through to divine Tao. Because of this, Longao would definitely give the inheritance to a suitable candidate. In the end, Longao had no choice but to leave Dragon Sect and return to his family. He was going to find a suitable candidate in his family. On the second day after returning to his family, Longao was pleasantly surprised to find that Kwang Ao's physique and everything was suitable for the divine Tao inheritance. If Kwang Ao got the inheritance, he believed that the result would be twice the result with half the effort. Since that was the case, Longao didn't continue to hesitate. He immediately found Kwang Ao and asked, "Kwang Ao, how do you feel in Long family?" Long Ao and Kwang Ao were friends from the beginning. Therefore, Kwang Ao had been staying in Long family. Kwang Ao smiled and nodded. He said with satisfaction, "I'm living very comfortably. Brother Long, you've been in the limelight recently." Long Ao smiled and said directly, "Kwang Ao, I've asked you to come here this time mainly for one thing. I'll tell you in advance that this matter is very dangerous. However, opportunities exist side by side. Whether you agree or not is up to you." Kwang Ao was surprised to see Long Ao so serious. He nodded and asked, "What is it?" "Kwang Ao, have you heard of Divine Tao martial artists?" "Divine Tao martial artists?" Kwang Ao was shocked to hear the words Divine Tao martial artists. He nodded and said, "Brother Long, of course I've heard of Divine Tao martial artists. It's said that Divine Tao martial artists are the strongest existences in the world. However, they only exist in legends. Legend has it." Smiling, Long Ao said, "Kwang Ao, if I were to say that I've seen the divine soul of a supreme Tao martial artist with my own eyes, and I even have a supreme Tao inheritance, would you believe me?" He fiercely swallowed his saliva and said arrogantly, "I believe you, Brother Long." "Do you mean that you have already obtained the inheritance of the Supreme Tao and will become a Supreme Tao warrior in the near future?" Warriors of the Supreme Tao. Domineering thought that Long Ao was very likely to become a Supreme Tao warrior, and his heart beat fiercely. It was simply infuriating. In just 1 year, Long Ao had already grown to such an extent. Who in the world could contend with Long Ao? With a mysterious smile, Long Ao said, "I have indeed obtained the inheritance of the divine Tao, but I am not the one who has inherited it." "You're not going to inherit the divine Tao inheritance?" "Yes, that's why I'm going to choose someone else to inherit the inheritance." Domineering wasn't an idiot. Of course, he could understand Long Ao's meaning. Moreover, Long Ao didn't look for anyone else but him. Could it be that Long Ao wanted to pass the inheritance of the Supreme Tao to him? Although he had already guessed it, Domineering was still somewhat excited and speechless. "Domineering, since you've already guessed it, then I'll also get straight to the point. This time, I've looked for you mainly to pass the inheritance of the Supreme Tao to you. I hope you can inherit it well. However, I'll still say the same thing. Inheriting the inheritance of the Supreme Tao also comes with a certain amount of danger." Although Long Ao didn't continue speaking, the meaning in his words was already very clear. "Brother Long, since you think so highly of me, I'll also get straight to the point. No matter what kind of danger it is, I'm not afraid." Domineering was very clear that Long Ao chose him because he believed in him. To him, the inheritance of the Supreme Tao was undoubtedly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Once he missed it, who knew if he would get such an opportunity again in the future? "Brother Long, don't worry. Now that I've obtained the inheritance of the Supreme Tao, no matter what realm I reach, I'll protect the Long family and never abandon them." This was what he wanted. Although Long Ao didn't say it explicitly, he really hoped that Domineering would stay in the Long family. Although Domineering was his friend, Long Ao wasn't a saint. It was impossible for him to give the inheritance of the Supreme Tao to an outsider for free. However, Domineering was smart enough to say it out in advance. No matter what, he knew clearly what the inheritance of the Supreme Tao represented. Once he obtained the inheritance of the Supreme Tao, even if he couldn't achieve the Supreme Tao, he could at least reach the great sovereign realm. Domineering, to be honest, ever since I've obtained the inheritance of the Supreme Tao, I've looked for many people. None of them are suitable to inherit the inheritance of the Supreme Tao. If there's no accident, once you inherit the inheritance of the Supreme Tao, you'll definitely become a Supreme Tao warrior in the future. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't surprised. Next, Longao directly inserted the inheritance of the Supreme Tao into Domineering's body. The rest was up to Domineering to comprehend and refine. Longao knew clearly that if Domineering wanted to refine the inheritance of the Supreme Tao, he would need at least a few years. However, after a few years, the Dragon Sect would have its first Supreme Tao warrior. He could totally imagine that if the Dragon Sect could have its first Supreme Tao warrior, would the four major forces still dare to provoke the Dragon Sect? Because of this, Longao was looking forward to the day when Domineering became a Supreme Tao warrior. Domineering didn't hesitate. He immediately found a secluded place and started to cultivate in seclusion. At the same time, he started to refine the inheritance of the Supreme Tao. Long family, main hall. Ao, is what you said just now true? Hearing Longao talking about the Supreme Tao inheritance, everyone was shocked. Following that, they were pleasantly surprised. Although they didn't know what the inheritance of the Supreme Tao was, they were shocked to hear that the Supreme Tao warrior was the strongest existence in the world. Longao and the others didn't seem to understand why Ao would give the inheritance of the Supreme Tao to Domineering. In everyone's opinion, although Domineering was Longao's friend, he wasn't a disciple of the Long family. If he fell out with them in the future, wouldn't they suffer a double loss? How could Longao not know what everyone was thinking? He said firmly, I believe in my friend and I believe in Domineering even more. This matter ends here. Grandfather, don't leak this matter out. Otherwise, we will be in big trouble. Longao knew clearly that once the inheritance of the Supreme Tao was leaked out, not to mention the four major forces, just the WN Shou sect, Heaven and Earth sect, and the Long family would interfere. Especially the WAN Shou sect. No matter what, this Supreme Tao warrior was from the WN Shou sect. Therefore, to avoid trouble, it was best not to leak this matter out. Chapter 489. Yes, this matter won't spread. Longao knew that the Divine Tao inheritance was no small matter. Once it spread, the implications would be too great. Grandfather, according to the speed at which Kwang Ao is refining the Divine Tao inheritance, he will become a great emperor or Divine Tao realm in at most 5 or even 3 years. If that's the case, then our Long family will have the qualifications to aim for the continent. Longao nodded excitedly. Longao felt like he was dreaming when he thought about the birth of a Divine Tao martial artist in the family. Ao, did the Imperial City ask you to go to the Alliance this time? Nodding his head, Longao did not hide anything. He explained Duan Kai's intentions in full detail. After listening, the three elders, Longao, Wang Yidao, and Mu Wanfeng, were not as surprised as they had imagined. Instead, they were extremely solemn. The three of them had been through a lot. Of course, they knew that with the grudge between Longao and the Imperial City would not be so kind as to ally with the Dragon Sect against the three forces. There was no doubt that the Imperial City must be plotting something. Ao, since you have agreed, then we must be careful. Are you going to move the Dragon Sect over first, or do you want to move the family over as well? Longao was a little troubled when this question was raised. According to Longao's previous idea, he was going to move the sect and family to the 9-state spirit realm. The Dark Forest would be the headquarters, and the City of Sin would be the outer sect. This way, they would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. However, the problem now was that there were too many unexpected situations if he wanted to ally with the Imperial City. If the sect and family were to move to the 9-state spirit realm, the losses would be infinitely greater if they encountered trouble. As the master of the Dragon Sect and a disciple of the Long family, Longao's first priority was the safety of his family and disciples, not how to fight against the four forces. Ao, I have a suggestion. Please say it, grandfather. It's very simple. The family will stay here, and the dragon sect will be divided into two. One will enter the 9-state spirit realm and ally with the imperial city to deal with the three forces. The other will stay and expand the dragon sect's strength. Longao instantly understood what his grandfather meant. Without the slightest objection, he nodded and agreed, let's do it this way. This time, I will personally lead the dragon sect to the spirit realm of the 9 states. Grandfather, I will leave the family to you. Don't worry, you don't have to worry about the family. You must be careful when you enter the spirit realm of the 9 states. Don't be reckless. Nodding, Longao passed the divine Dao inheritance to Longao. He didn't stay in the clan for long. After meeting with Aoshue and his parents, he left the clan. No matter what, he still had to make preparations. This alliance with the royal city was no small matter, he couldn't be careless. Otherwise, the one who would suffer in the end would be him. As soon as he returned to the dragon sect, Longao immediately gathered all the higher-ups of the dragon sect, including Dugu Bai, Snake Emperor, Xia Jun, Long Potian, Ghost King, and the others. Getting straight to the point, Longao roughly explained his thoughts and asked, "What do you think?" "Master, this method is workable." With Snake Emperor's approval, everyone expressed that they had no objections. This way, the dragon sect would be divided into two parts. One part would go to the spirit realm of the 9 states and form an alliance with the royal city, and the other part would stay to expand the sect's strength. Before returning, Longao had already thought about it. Uncle Ao, Elder Snake, will oversee the dragon sect and develop the sect's strength. Big Brother Dugu and Big Brother Potian will follow me to the spirit realm of the 9 states. The rest will stay. Master, are you going to bring the corpse slave army with you this time? Snake Emperor was most concerned about this because he had seen the terror of the corpse slave army with his own eyes. Once the master took the corpse slave army with him, it would be very difficult to develop the sect's strength. At least, it would be 2 or 3 times more difficult. How could everyone not know what Snake Emperor meant? However, no one said anything because everyone knew that Snake Emperor was doing this for the sect. Everything would depend on the master. Elder Snake, this time I will only bring 1,000 ordinary disciples to the spirit realm of the 9 states. As for the others and the corpse slave army, they will all stay in the sect. You only need to do one thing, and that is to conquer the entire 9 states in the shortest time possible. Not taking the corpse slave army. Hearing this, Snake Emperor was instantly delighted. With the corpse slave army, Snake Emperor had full confidence that he could lead the corpse slave army to conquer the 9 states. Master, don't worry. Within a year, I will lead the corpse slave army to conquer the 9 states. The Snake Emperor ignored the disciples of the dragon sect. Sweeping through the 9 states was too dangerous. If they chose to fight head-on, the losses would be too great. With the help of the corpse slave army, the losses would be reduced to 0. Why not? Longao had already decided that when he went to the spirit realm of the 9 states, he would go to the dark forest and create a new corpse slave army. At that time, even if the imperial city wanted to play tricks, he would at least have the corpse slave army to stop them. Longao had full confidence in the corpse slave army that he had created. An undying body that could fight against 10,000 people was no joke. In the following time, Longao, Snake Emperor, and Ghost King discussed the sect's matters until 3 days later. Longao brought Dugu Bai, Long Potian, and 1,000 disciples and left the dragon sect for the spirit realm of the 9 states. They did not hide at all. The imperial city and the dragon sect formed an alliance. The first reaction of everyone who heard the news was that they did not believe it because everyone knew that Longao and the imperial city had always been enemies. It was either you die or I die. Since that was the case, how could Longao and the imperial city form an alliance? Just when everyone was in disbelief, the imperial city and the dragon sect announced to the world at the same time that the imperial city and the dragon sect had officially formed an alliance. Since then, no one had the slightest doubt, because since the imperial city and the dragon sect had announced to the world, this matter was absolutely true and would not change. It shocked the world. The alliance between the Dragon Sect and the Imperial City completely shocked the world. Until now, everyone finally understood that there were no eternal enemies in the world, only unchanging interests. Although no one knew why the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect had formed an alliance, everyone knew that the 9 states had become even more chaotic. The other 3 major forces, the Nether Mansion, Ethereal Palace, and the third-rank Long family, chose to remain silent about the alliance between the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect. Thus, the spirit realm of the 9 states became even more turbulent because no one knew what the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect were planning. The spirit realm of the 9 states had 4 major forces: the Eastern Imperial City, the Western third-rank Long family, the Southern Nether Mansion, the Northern Ethereal Palace, and now the Sin City, which was the so-called Dragon Sect. Chapter 490. The Imperial City had a total of 3 teleportation formations, and one of them was given to the Dragon Sect. With their own teleportation formation, it would be much more convenient to enter the spirit domain of the 9 states. Longao brought the Dragon Sect into the spirit domain of the 9 states. Soon, they arrived at the city of Sin and settled down temporarily. Spirit domain of the 9 states, rank 3 Long family, main hall. Master, now that the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect have formed an alliance, it seems like they want to deal with us. What should we do? Long Yang's face was extremely gloomy because he never thought that the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect would suddenly form an alliance. Now, things were getting troublesome. Who knew what the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect were thinking? The Dragon Sect was easy to deal with. As long as the 4 forces were determined to destroy the Dragon Sect, it could be done at any time. But the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect had formed an alliance. With the support of the Imperial City, it would not be easy for the 3 forces to continue destroying the Dragon Sect. Humph, there's no need to be nervous about this. You and I both know the grudge between the Imperial City and Longao. The Imperial City is willing to form an alliance with the Dragon Sect. I don't believe it. But Master. Waving his hand, Long Maoan said, let's wait and see. The rank 3 Long family, Nether Mansion, and Ethereal Palace did not care about the alliance between the Imperial City and the Dragon Sect. It seemed like they did not care about the alliance at all. But after thinking about it, it was understandable. The Dragon Sect had just been established. How could the Imperial City alone be a match for the 3 forces? The 2 sides were not comparable at all. Longao was extremely excited about the attitude of the 3 forces. This was the effect he wanted. The Imperial City and the Dragon Sect were in an alliance in name, but in reality, they were doing their own thing. The Imperial City only gave out a teleportation formation. The City of Sin. As soon as they entered the City of Sin, Longao immediately found the 2 half-saints and handed over the matters of the City of Sin to the 4 of them. Then, Longao entered the Dark Forest and prepared to create an army of corpse demons in the shortest time. At least, it could ensure the safety of the City of Sin. The Dark Forest was a paradise for spiritual beasts and hell for warriors. Under normal circumstances, no one would enter the Dark Forest unless they wanted to hunt spirit beasts and obtain beast cores. Otherwise, no one would be so bored as to cause trouble for themselves. Longao was now a peak world emperor. As long as he did not encounter a saint beast, he could almost kill them all. Longao wasn't polite this time. He prepared to create an army of 10,000 World King spirit beasts and World Emperor spirit beasts. In other words, when Longao entered the Dark Forest, he only wanted to kill World King spirit beasts and World Emperor spirit beasts. As for the lower-level spirit beasts, he didn't care about them at all. Tianju, Long family, Back Mountain. In a secluded cave, Domineering Pride sat quietly on the ground, refining the divine Tao inheritance in his body. From the beginning to the end, Kwang-ao was in a state of extreme excitement because he knew clearly that once he refined the divine Tao inheritance in his body, he would be able to break through to the Great Emperor realm at the very least. If he could break through to the divine Tao realm, he would be like a carp leaping through the dragon's gate. Supreme Tao martial artists were existences that stood at the pinnacle of martial arts. Didn't that mean that once he refined the divine Tao inheritance, He would be able to stand at the pinnacle of martial arts and look down on the heavens? In domineering pride's heart, he was actually very grateful to one person, and that was Longao. Domineering pride knew clearly that if it wasn't for Longao, he wouldn't have been able to obtain the divine Tao inheritance. In this lifetime, he wouldn't have been able to break through to the divine Tao realm. He wouldn't even be able to break through to the great emperor realm. Sitting quietly in the cave, domineering pride wholeheartedly refined the divine Tao inheritance in his body. At this moment, a burst of cold laughter rang out, scaring domineering pride. He said vigilantly, "Who is it? Come out if you have the ability." "Chimph, with just you?" In domineering pride's shocked gaze, he realized that his body was no longer under his control. He didn't know what had happened at all. In the blink of an eye, domineering pride's soul was taken over and replaced with a divine soul. "Ha ha ha ha, I've finally been reborn. Catcher." Before the divine soul could finish rejoicing, a terrifying energy suddenly appeared from the ground and enveloped him. Feeling this terrifying aura, the illusory old man seemed to have thought of something and shouted in fear, "Impossible, this is impossible." Without giving the divine soul any chance, it was directly absorbed by the energy from the ground. Domineering pride's soul was instantly restored. What a terrifying energy! It can even devour the divine soul of a supreme Tao martial artist. Domineering pride already knew what had happened. He was devoured by his divine soul, and his divine soul was devoured by a mysterious energy. In other words, this mysterious energy was at least at the divine Tao realm. There was a supreme Tao martial artist in Longao Peak? Impossible. Domineering pride had stayed here for a long time. It was impossible that he didn't know. Could there really be a supreme Tao martial artist in Longao Peak? Not daring to hesitate, domineering pride didn't even inform Longao and the others. He quietly left the Long family. His intuition told him that this was no small matter. He had to inform Brother Long as soon as possible. In just 3 days, Longao had killed over 100 World King and World Emperor spirit beasts. According to Long Fu's refining speed, it would take several days. It was also because of this that Longao left the Dark Forest and returned to Sin City. Just as he stepped into Sin City, Longao already knew that domineering pride had arrived. Longao was puzzled. He didn't know why domineering pride had come here. After all, under normal circumstances, domineering pride should have gone into seclusion to refine the supreme Tao inheritance after obtaining it. Filled with curiosity, Longao returned to the City Lord mansion. "Brother Long, things have become troublesome. Speak slowly. What happened?" Domineering pride didn't dare to be negligent. He recounted everything that happened in the cave without missing a single detail. After he finished, domineering pride deeply sighed and said, "I can say with certainty that within Longao Peak, there must be an even more powerful supreme Tao martial artist. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to devour divine souls." Longao nodded. His expression was dignified. This was because he never imagined that there would be a supreme Tao martial artist at Longao Peak. If this was true, then things would truly be troublesome. No matter what, the Long family was currently at Longao Peak. Longao wasn't sure whether the supreme Tao martial artist at Longao Peak was a true body or a divine soul. Whether it was the true body or divine soul, since they could devour the divine soul of a heavenly god, this proved just how terrifying this supreme Tao martial artist was. Longao could completely guess that the strength of this supreme Tao martial artist had reached the peak of the heavenly god realm. Peak of the heavenly god realm, an existence that stood at the pinnacle of martial arts. Longao Peak actually had such a powerful supreme Tao martial artist. This was something that no one could have imagined. Chapter 491. Brother Long, what should we do now? Kwong Ao was terrified. If it wasn't for this supreme Tao expert devouring the supreme Tao inheritance, his soul would have been destroyed long ago. However, domineering arrogance was still unwilling because he had already obtained the inheritance of the divine Tao. If he were to disappear just like that, not to mention him, he believed that no matter who it was, they would have the same expression. Supreme Dao inheritance. Thinking that he was so close to the Supreme Dao expert, Kwang Ao cursed in his heart. Long Ao knew what Kwang Ao was thinking and said, "It's fated. There's no need to force it. What's yours will always be yours. If it's not yours, it's useless no matter how hard you try." After thinking for a while, Long Ao said, "Don't be impatient. Since this Supreme Dao expert didn't do anything to us, I believe he doesn't have any ill intentions. Let's wait and see." Wait and see. Domineering arrogance was very worried. No matter what, the other party was a genuine Supreme Dao martial artist. He believed that with a move of his finger, he could easily exterminate everyone in the Long family. "Since you're here, stay and help me. I'm going back. Brother Long, you must be careful." "It's fine." Before he left, Long Ao found the two half-sages, Dugu Bai and Long Potian. He went straight to the point and said, "Something happened in the clan. I have to rush back immediately. I'll leave Sin City's matters to you too." Seeing the master so serious, the four knew that something big must have happened in the Long family. Dugu Bai asked worriedly, "Master, what happened?" "Yes, why don't we go back with you?" Long Ao waved his hand and said, "It's fine. I can handle it myself. You guys just have to help me manage Sin City." The four knew the master's character very well. Once he decided on something, it was almost impossible to change it. "Remember, no matter what happens in the Imperial City, you guys just have to say that I'm not here and wait for me to come back. If the Nether Mansion, Ethereal Palace, and Long family attack, you guys can choose to defend." "Master, we know what to do." With regards to the four of them, Long Ao was not worried at all. Without further ado, Long Ao stood up and left Sin City. On the surface, Long Ao did not seem to be in a hurry, but in his heart, he could not wait any longer. Just like what Domineering Ao had said, this expert of the Long Ao Peak was a Supreme Dao martial artist after all. Just by moving his finger, he could easily annihilate the entire clan. It was precisely because of this that Long Ao couldn't wait to return to his family. No matter what, he had to find out what had happened. Why would a Supreme Dao warrior suddenly appear in Long Ao and be able to devour the divine soul of a divine realm warrior? If Domineering hadn't said it himself, Long Ao wouldn't have believed it at all. They had just left the city of Sin and had yet to step into the teleportation portal when they passed by a barren land. Long Ao's face instantly turned cold as two figures suddenly appeared in front of him. They were none other than Liu Buming and Feng Wui from the Ethereal Palace. "The two of you, we are really fated to meet here." Long Ao was very afraid of Feng Wui and Liu Buming. No matter what, the two of them were saints, super existences above the half-saint realm. Long Ao knew very well that if he encountered two half-saints, he might have a chance to take advantage of them if they were careless. But if he encountered two saints, there was almost no chance for him to win. This was the difference between the half-saints and saints. The difference was like heaven and earth. Feng Wui snorted and said coldly, "Long Ao, you created havoc in the Ethereal Palace. It's time to settle the score today." Long Ao instantly understood what the two of them meant. It seemed that the two of them couldn't wait any longer. It could also be said that they were afraid. The one-year agreement was almost useless for these shameless people. Long Ao completely despised the two of them. "Long Ao, for the sake of the one-year agreement, the two of us can give you a chance. 10 moves, you can choose one of us. As long as you can take 10 moves from us, we will let you go. The one-year agreement is still valid. How about it? 10 moves." It seemed simple, but it was actually very dangerous. If he was careless, he would be killed by the two saints. Feng Wui and Liu Buming's meaning was very simple. It was indeed a little shameless to fight openly. Although they had to be shameless, they had to find an excuse. Regardless of the others, they could at least give an explanation to the two of them. Long Ao smiled contemptuously. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such shameless people. They had reached the extreme. "Feng Wui, Liu Buming, you are dignified saints. How can you be so shameless?" "No problem, I will take 10 moves from either of you. But let me tell you clearly, if I can take 10 moves from you this time, I will assassinate the ethereal palace within a year, no matter who it is. Hearing this, Feng Wui and Liu Buming's faces instantly darkened and turned as ugly as they could. Feng Wui and Liu Buming were not fools. According to Longao's strength, once he assassinated, the sect would be completely unlucky. As the saying goes, those who have nothing to lose are not afraid of those who wear shoes. Longao, you have to know that you have the Dragon sect and the Long family behind you. If we assassinate, Feng Wui did not continue, but the meaning of his words was very clear. If you assassinate the disciples of the ethereal palace, I will assassinate the disciples of the Dragon sect and the Long family. Let's see who is afraid of who. But Longao was really not afraid. He said very indifferently, in that case, let's start. I hope you are really not afraid. When the time comes, let's have a competition and see who can kill more people. What do you think? F***ck, he's simply crazy. Whether it was Feng Wui or Liu Buming, both of them cursed in their hearts. But they really did not dare to gamble, and could not gamble. If they were unlucky and let this person escape, the consequences would be unimaginable. But things had already come to this point. If the two of them retreated in the face of difficulties, wouldn't they be ridiculed by the world? This time, the two saints intercepted Longao halfway. It was a very secretive thing in itself, because Longao and the ethereal palace had a 1-year agreement. The two of them intercepted him halfway, which was a shameless act in itself. Longao, what do you want? Ha ha ha, what do I want? As if he had heard the funniest thing in the world, Longao looked up to the sky and laughed. His laughter was full of contempt and ridicule, while Feng Wui and Liu Buming's faces became even colder. You intercepted me halfway, and now you ask me what do I want? I want to ask, what do you want? You violated our 1-year agreement, which is already very shameless. I didn't expect you to be even more shameless. Chapter 492. Longao, the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Waving his hand, Longao did not give the two any chance to talk nonsense. The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. That's right, and I agree with it. But your behavior is shameless to the extreme. Since you are despicable people, why did you agree to the 1-year agreement? Whether it was Feng Wui or Liu Buming, they were speechless by Longao's question and did not know how to answer. No matter what, they were in the wrong in this matter. The 1-year agreement was made by the two of them and Longao in the ethereal palace. But in just over a month, they violated the 1-year agreement. This time, Feng Wui and Liu Buming had no choice but to make such a decision. The two of them had never thought that Longao's potential would be so great. Adding to the fact that the imperial city had suddenly turned against them, once Longao was given enough time to develop, the two of them found it hard to imagine just how far Longao would grow. Because of this, the two of them finally chose to intercept and kill him halfway. The two of them knew very well that once they successfully killed Longao, all the trouble would disappear and the Jojo spirit region would return to its previous state. In the end, the culprit was Longao. Therefore, Longao would undoubtedly die. But the two of them were not fully confident. Two saints working together were not confident to kill a peak world emperor. If this matter was spread out, it would definitely be a laughingstock. But for some reason, the two of them just did not have confidence. Longao, if I can't defeat you within 10 moves, Dragon Sect and Ethereal Palace will develop separately within a year. After a year, we will fight to the death. How about it? No. Longao was too lazy to look down on them. Ethereal Palace had taken all the good things. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. Feng Wui, Liu Buming, let's be frank. I know what you two mean. You want to kill me and get rid of all future troubles. Feng Wui and Liu Buming didn't say anything. With a cold snort, Longao continued, since that's the case, let's cut the crap. If I can take 10 moves from you, you have to promise me one thing. If I can't, you don't have to do anything. I'll kill myself right here. The two saints were surprised to hear Longao's words. They couldn't figure out what gave Longao such confidence. Not to mention a pinnacle world emperor martial artist, Even a pinnacle half-saint martial artist might not be able to take 10 moves from a saint. He had full confidence in the two of them. Because of this, Liu Buming replied, "No problem. Who do you want to choose?" "You then. You don't look like a good person. You have a fat head and big ears. You look like you're asking for a beating." Liu Buming couldn't stand being scolded, but he knew that he couldn't be fooled and give the other party a chance to take advantage of him. Feng Wui retreated to one side, while Longao concentrated. Although 10 moves could be completed in the blink of an eye in a battle between two martial artists, Longao didn't have full confidence that he could take 10 moves from the other party. If he couldn't, his life would be in danger. "Longao. Long your grandfather." Without giving Liu Buming the slightest chance to speak, Longao took a big stride and rushed out. Before he arrived, the terrifying aura of heaven and earth had already suppressed him. He used his self-created martial technique, Sorrow of Heaven and Earth. The aura of heaven and earth. Liu Buming already knew that Longao had condensed the aura of heaven and earth. With some precautions, he could resist it. But what Liu Buming didn't expect was that Longao's martial technique was so powerful. Longao was like a huge tornado, sweeping around. In an instant, Liu Buming was swept into the tornado. Inside the tornado, Longao attacked one move after another. Before Liu Buming could react, he directly used Blood Drinker, devouring the heavens. The terrifying power of the saber slashed out like a meteor. Liu Buming was shocked. Liu Buming really didn't expect Longao's offensive to be so fierce. He didn't give him the slightest chance at all. He didn't even release his Saint Chi. Liu Buming didn't dare to be careless and dodged in time. He had to admit that the speed of a saint was very fast, but even so, he still brushed past the saber light. Cracks appeared in the surrounding space caused by the saber light, causing Liu Buming to roll and crawl. He was almost swallowed by the saber light. Rolling and crawling, he rolled out of the tornado and looked at the tornado in front of him in a daze. Until now, Liu Buming still didn't know what had happened. Although he didn't want to admit it, Liu Buming knew very well that if it was a normal battle, he would have lost. He had to admit that Longao was really strong. Fortunately, the gap in cultivation realm was difficult to make up for, otherwise, he would have been killed just now. Not only Liu Buming, but even Feng Wui, who was watching the battle, was deeply shocked. He also didn't know what had happened. Why did Liu Buming roll and crawl out? "Brother Liu, are you okay?" Before Liu Buming could ask, the tornado had disappeared and Longao's figure appeared. He looked at the saint in front of him with a sneer, without the slightest fear, and said, "Liu Buming, how do you feel?" "Longao, you don't have to be so arrogant. It was just 2 moves. If you can take the other 8 moves, I will kowtow to you and call you grandfather." "Call what?" "Grandfather." Liu Buming definitely wouldn't be fooled if it was any other time, but now, Liu Buming's state of mind had obviously changed. After all, he was a saint expert who was almost killed by a world emperor. Not to mention others, even he himself began to despise himself a little. Amazing. Feng Wui sighed in his heart. He had to admit that Longao was indeed a rare genius. It was precisely because of this that this boy couldn't be left alive. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble in the future. Seemingly knowing that he had been fooled, Liu Buming didn't continue to talk nonsense in anger. His body erupted with Saint Chi, trying to use it to suppress Longao. If it was an ordinary world emperor, Liu Buming believed that Saint Chi could completely suppress Longao, but it seemed a little inadequate to suppress Longao. After all, Longao had the imposing mana of heaven and earth, a powerful imposing mana that was superior to Saint Chi. The imposing mana of heaven and earth couldn't suppress the power of Saint Chi, but it could suppress the imposing mana of Saint Chi. Just as Liu Buming released his imposing mana, he seemed to have thought of something and his face turned bitter. He wanted to withdraw it, but it seemed to be too late. With his imposing mana firmly suppressed, Longao changed from passive to active and rushed out again. This time, it wasn't his self-created martial skills, heaven and earth sorrow or devour blood, but his bloodline awakened innate divine ability, dragon roar. Innate divine ability, dragon roar. A loud dragon roar resounded, instantly resounding through the world. At this time, a huge illusory dragon shadow suddenly appeared behind Longao, vicissitudes of life and majesty. Chapter 493. Innate Divine Ability, Dragon's Roar. The ancient dragon's roar resounded through heaven and earth, and a strange power instantly enveloped Liu Buming. Innate divine ability. Feeling this terrifying power enveloping them, both Feng Wui and Liu Buming's faces changed abruptly, as if they were in disbelief. Both of them knew very well what innate divine abilities represented. According to legend, once a disciple of the Long family enters the Long family's ancestral hall for baptism, their bloodline will awaken innate divine abilities, and their strength will increase greatly. However, Longao did not have the opportunity to enter the Long family's ancestral hall for baptism. It was because of this that both of them could not figure out how Longao could have innate divine abilities. Liu Buming was instantly enveloped by the innate divine ability due to his carelessness. Liu Buming found that his body was locked, and the flow of time around him had changed. He had no idea what was going on. Not daring to be careless, Liu Buming channeled all the power in his body to break free from this power. A saint was a saint, and innate divine abilities did not seem to be of much use. Longao used his innate divine ability, Dragon's Roar, not to defeat or kill Liu Buming, but to stall for time. According to their agreement, as long as he could withstand 10 moves, he would be considered the winner. 10 moves. It might seem like a simple task, but it was impossible for him to persevere through it. However, after using Heaven and Earth Sorrow and Devour Bloodthirst, and then using his innate divine ability, Longao could be considered to have stalled for 7 moves, and there were only 3 left to win. What Longao could think of, Feng Wui and Liu Buming could also think of. After being tricked for 7 moves in a row, and he did not even have the chance to react, Liu Buming was extremely depressed. As a saint, he was actually tricked by a world emperor martial artist consecutively. If this matter were to spread, he would definitely be ridiculed. Longao, I'd like to see how you're going to withstand the last 3 moves. Idiot. Not bothering to talk nonsense, Longao continued to strike first. This time, Longao did not use his so-called innate divine ability, nor did he use Heaven and Earth Sorrow, but instead took out the Bell of Death from his arms. His soul power entered the Bell of Death. At this time, a deep and strange bell rang, spreading in all directions, rolling and long and deep. Death Knell. Ever since Longao obtained the Death Knell, this was the first time he used it. As for how powerful it was, he had no idea. However, Longao was sure of one thing, and that was that the Death Knell was a supreme treasure of a supreme Dao martial artist. Just by thinking about it, he knew that its power would not be weak. The Bell of Death rang out. Once one was infected by it, it would be like a hammer smashing into one's soul. Saints were no exception. Liu Buming was taken aback. He felt as if his soul had been struck hard. Fortunately, he had the protection of his Saint Qi. Otherwise, this strike alone would have been enough to kill him. Whether Longao was a human or not, Liu Buming was really afraid of him at this moment. This was because Longao had used strange moves one after another. Liu Buming and Feng Wui were very clear in their hearts that a semi-sage expert would have been killed without exception if they had been careless. Feng Wui and Liu Buming joined forces to release their Saint Qi, and the sound of the death knell was instantly extinguished. However, the two of them had violated the agreement. According to the agreement, this was a battle between Longao and Liu Buming. Feng Wui could not intervene, but what was the result? 8 moves had passed, and only 2 moves were left. However, Longao looked at the 2 in front of him with a sneer. He did not speak, but Longao's face was full of ridicule and contempt. Feng Wui and Liu Buming cursed Longao fiercely in their hearts. No matter what, they had violated the agreement first this time. However, they had no choice but to do so. After all, the sound of the bell just now was too terrifying. If they did not take action, who knew what would happen next? Feng Wui, Liu Buming, I wonder if this counts as my victory? Nope. Longao had already guessed that the 2 of them would say this. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such disgusting and shameless people. They had violated the agreement first, but they acted as if they were right. It was disgusting to see them. Longao, I released my chi just now because I was anxious. Now that 9 moves have passed, there is only 1 move left. As long as you can withstand the 10th move, you win this battle. Longao did not continue to talk nonsense. He knew that it would not be easy to withstand Liu Buming's last move even if he used all his trump cards. This time, Liu Buming did not release his Saint Chi. No matter what, his opponent had the heaven and earth Chi. Even if he released his Chi, it would be useless. It was precisely because of this that Liu Buming rushed out like an arrow. Before he arrived, his terrifying fist force had already arrived. All the strength in his body was gathered on his fists. In this case, Longao could only choose to meet force with force. He also punched out with both fists. At this time, the 2 fists collided fiercely. The fist force scattered and collided with each other. When the 2 fists collided, Longao's face suddenly changed and he cursed, "Shameless thing." It turned out that this time, Liu Buming's attack was not just his own strength, but also Feng Wui's. The full strength attack of 2 saints, one could imagine how powerful it was. Longao knew that the 2 of them were shameless, but he never thought that the 2 of them would be shameless to this extent. They clearly agreed that one of them would fight, but what happened in the end? This time, Feng Wui suddenly made a move and gathered all his power into Liu Buming's body. It could be considered as a gamble. Since things had developed to this point, they could not let Longao continue to live. Otherwise, not to mention their face, just the other party's potential and room for development was enough to deter them. In order not to cause trouble for themselves in the future, the 2 of them finally chose this move. No matter what happened, even if they were laughed at in the future, as long as they could kill Longao. Longao could not resist the punch of 2 saints at all. With a loud bang, Longao's whole body flew out. In mid-air, he vomited blood and his body trembled. It was obvious that he would not survive. Whether it was Feng Wui or Liu Buming, both of them had full confidence in their joint punch. Not to mention a little world emperor, even a warrior at the peak of the half-saint realm couldn't resist it. Even a saint would die as long as he was attacked by them. This was the power of 2 saints joining forces. It was unstoppable. Longao was not killed by the punch. After all, the Saint of Desolation had helped him to reduce 50% of the power. But even so, Longao still felt that all the internal organs in his body were displaced and his body could fall apart at any time. Not daring to be careless, Longao stopped abruptly. Chapter 494. Shameless. Shameless. Hearing Longao's words, Feng Wui and Liu Buming suddenly burst into laughter. They did not have the slightest bit of shame or guilt. It was as though to them, being shameless was a given. Longao, you will definitely die today. With that, Feng Wui and Liu Buming attacked at the same time, not giving Longao any chance to escape. From the beginning to the end, Longao had never thought of leaving. Otherwise, he would have left at the beginning. He needed to train himself through life and death because he always had a feeling that in order to break through to the illusionary divine stage, the 9 reincarnation technique would require him to experience life and death. This feeling was very strange and indescribable. It was because of this that Longao did not leave and fought with the 2 saints. Longao still chose to meet force with force, and fought fiercely with the 2 saints. They exchanged blows, and in less than 2 moves, Longao was once again sent flying. Seeing this, both Feng Wui and Liu Buming were shocked. They did not know if Longao was crazy. He knew that he was no match for the 2 of them, but he still chose to fight head-on. Longao had just been knocked down, but in the blink of an eye, he came back again and chose to attack. Just like this, Longao was beaten down again and again. However, he stood up again and again. His determination told him that if he wanted to break through, he had to persevere. He had to admit that the Saint of Desolation body was very powerful. Even if the 2 saints attacked continuously, they could not break through the defense of the Saint of Desolation body. Kill. Seeing that they couldn't kill Longao even after joining forces, Feng Wui and Liu Buming were a little anxious. Because both of them couldn't figure out why they couldn't kill Longao again and again with their combined strength. If they had not experienced it themselves, they would not have believed it. Longao had been knocked down 10 times, but he still did not choose to give up. However, the difference in their realms was too great. Longao's sacred body of desolation defense alone was not realistic for him to continue resisting. It was precisely because of this that when Feng Wui and Liu Buming joined forces to strike Longao's chest for the 11th time, Longao's entire body was dented and he was sent flying again. This time, Longao did not succeed in standing up. Instead, he quietly fell to the ground. Seeing this situation, both Feng Wui and Liu Buming were overjoyed. They quickly came to Longao's side. As saints, they could clearly sense that Longao had stopped breathing. Tear him to pieces. Suddenly, however, Longao's body disappeared into thin air. That's right, he disappeared into thin air right under the eyes of the two saints. The two saints widened their eyes in disbelief. They could not understand why Longao would disappear into thin air. What exactly happened? Where is Longao? Shaking his head, Feng Wui looked around. The two of them did not dare to be careless and immediately began to search for Longao's traces. Longao lay quietly on the ground. There was no aura coming from his body, which meant that he had already died. However, Longao's soul was still wandering in his body. 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. 1 revolution is equivalent to ascending the heavens. I have finally broken through the 2nd revolution. Longao did not dare to be careless and immediately began to cultivate his soul. Longao had taken a huge gamble this time. If he had lost the gamble, his life would have been in danger. However, the result was that Longao had won the gamble. Not only that, his cultivation had broken through to the illusionary divine stage and he had also broken through to the 2nd revolution of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. It would be a lie to say that he was not surprised. After some time, Longao, who was supposed to be dead, suddenly opened his eyes and sat up. He looked around and his face was filled with surprise and excitement. I have finally broken through to the half-sage stage. All the spiritual energy in Longao's body had been converted into holy energy. However, Longao was not excited about breaking through to the illusionary divine stage. He was excited about the breakthrough of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. Longao had always known that the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was extremely powerful, especially when Long Fu said that the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was extremely powerful. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique could defy the heavens and earth. When his master had completed the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique, he would be able to step onto the peak of martial arts. Long Fu was looking forward to seeing his master take that step. The 9 revolutions reincarnation technique was the first revolution of the Yellow Springs. Now that he had broken through to the 2nd revolution, it was the spatial teleportation technique. Longao was extremely surprised to obtain the powerful spatial teleportation technique after breaking through to the 2nd revolution. Let me try. Longao was very clear that with his current strength, it was impossible for him to teleport across a large area. However, teleportation of 1 meter was more than enough. Longao executed the spatial teleportation technique and his body disappeared into thin air. Immediately after, he appeared 1 meter away. The spatial teleportation technique was very simple. It allowed a person to teleport from one place to another. Putting aside the power of the technique, one could imagine how terrifying the spatial teleportation technique was. The only disadvantage of the spatial teleportation technique was that it could not be used continuously. According to the records of the spatial teleportation technique, one had to have a strong soul to be able to teleport continuously. Therefore, with Longao's current soul power, he could only teleport once. However, even so, it was still very powerful. Just think about it. Longao was fighting with a martial artist of the same level. If he suddenly used spatial teleportation, he would be fighting in the same place. Suddenly, he would appear 1 meter away and launch a surprise attack. Just think about it and know what the result would be. Longao was very excited because when he used the spatial teleportation technique, he only felt a spatial fluctuation and his body had already been transferred to another place. If he did not experience it personally, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. Longao was very clear that the power of the spatial teleportation technique was far greater than the self-created sorrow of heaven and earth. Longao was looking forward to the remaining realms of the 9 revolutions reincarnation technique. If he could obtain more of such techniques, he would be able to improve quickly. However, in any case, this time, he had fought against 2 saints by himself. Not only did he not die, but his cultivation had also broken through and he had obtained the spatial teleportation technique. His cultivation had officially broken through to the half-step saint realm. Longao felt that his strength had instantly increased by 10 times. A peak world emperor was indeed incomparable to a beginner half-step saint. The two were not on the same level at all. Longao tried to use the divine dragon's arm. As expected, the breakthrough in his cultivation had more than doubled the power of the divine dragon's arm. In other words, if Longao encountered a half-step saint martial artist at this moment, he could easily obliterate the half-step saint martial artist. As for a saint, he was still unable to contend against them. The gap between a half-step saint and a saint was too big. Longao was very clear in his heart that unless his cultivation could break through to the peak of the half-step saint realm, he would be able to fight against a saint. P.S. The next chapter will officially break through 1 million words. I hope that everyone will tip 1 yuan to congratulate war god Longao for breaking through 1 million words. This way, Xiao Ju will also have face. Chapter 495. What the hell? Longao is clearly dead. Why did he suddenly disappear? After searching for an entire day and night, they still could not find any trace of Longao. Both Feng Wui and Liu Buming's faces were extremely gloomy. It seems like Longao is already dead. There is no need for us to continue searching. Let's go. Just as Liu Buming finished speaking, a terrifying sword radiance came slashing towards them, giving them a shock. Regardless of their carelessness, the both of them dodged sideways. However, the cracks in the space around them seemed to be able to swallow everything. If it was a normal half-sage, they would have been swallowed by the cracks in the space around them. However, Feng Wui and Liu Buming were both sages and managed to dodge the cracks. How have the both of you been? Looking at the young man who suddenly appeared in front of them, the both of them were shocked. They did not expect the dead Longao to come back to life and stand in front of them. Longao, I have to admit that you are very lucky to not die. Tempage, I have always been very lucky. Longao despised the both of them. They had agreed on 10 moves, but the both of them had plotted against him. Otherwise, he would have won. Hey! At this point in time, the both of them exclaimed as though they were not sure. You have already broken through to the illusionary divine stage. Thank you. This is all thanks to the both of you. Although they did not want to believe it, the truth was right in front of them. The both of them were completely stunned. They could not understand how Longao was able to break through to the illusionary divine stage. Such talent and potential was too scary. If he was given more time, wouldn't he be able to catch up with them? The more talented Longao was, the more talented he was, the more intense the killing intent of the two was. If one did not remove the roots, they would grow again. Longao, don't think that you can fight us just because you are a half-sage. No matter what happens today, you must die. Ha 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 ha. Hearing this, Longao looked up to the sky and laughed. He did not continue to talk nonsense. Longao's body instantly dashed out. Before he arrived, the terrifying aura of the world had already pressed down fiercely. Longao's intention was very simple. He wanted to use his world aura to suppress the Saint Chi auras of his two opponents. Otherwise, forget about fighting, just the Saint Chi auras released by his opponents would be enough to overwhelm him. The two of them did not expect that Longao would choose to take the initiative to attack. This time, the two of them did not fight alone. In order to end the battle quickly, the two of them worked together to kill Longao. In the blink of an eye, the The two sides were already engaged in a fierce battle. This time, Longao chose to fight 1 against 2, and it was a head-on battle. He wanted to see how strong he was and how big the gap was between him and a saint. As the saying goes, only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win 100 battles. This time, Longao also wanted to end the battle quickly. As soon as the battle started, he immediately used his self-created martial skills, Sorrow of Heaven and Earth and Devour Blood. Under the double attack, even if the two of them worked together, they would not dare to resist. And at this time, Longao once again used teleportation. His body appeared behind the two of them without any sound. Like a ghost, he lightly patted with his palm. The power seemed ordinary, but in reality, it was very powerful. The two of them were shocked. They did not know what had happened, but the perception of a saint was extremely strong. In an instant, they sensed the terrifying aura behind them. There was no need to look back at all. They had already punched out fiercely. Longao did not choose to continue to fight head-on. He endured the waves of weakness in his mind and used teleportation twice in a row. He directly teleported 2 meters away and left. Feng Wui, Liu Buming, I will slowly settle this score with the ethereal palace. You should pray. Ha 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 ha, I will come back for you. As the voice gradually disappeared, Longao's figure had already disappeared without a trace. The two of them did not chase after him. This was because Feng Wui and Liu Buming were already stunned. They stood there dumbfounded and no one knew what was going on in their minds. How did Longao do it? Teleportation. It seems like only the talent of a Long family can do such a thing. No matter what, this matter cannot be spread out. Otherwise, we will be in big trouble. The two of them were not fools. Of course, they knew that if the news of them killing Longao spread out, the ethereal palace would be laughed at. No matter what, this was not a glorious matter. No matter what happens, we must kill this person. Now, let's go and contact the level 3 Long family and Serene Hell Mansion. We will tell them about this matter. Whether they are willing to join forces or not, it will depend on them. Now that Longao had come back from the dead and had officially broken through to the illusionary divine stage, the two of them were even more fearful of him. They could not wait to kill Longao and get rid of all future troubles. On top of a huge rock, Longao sat cross-legged and quietly recuperated his soul. After this battle with the two sages, Longao was still a little depressed. Although he had broken through to the sage-to-be realm, the difference between him and a sage was still too big. Teleportation. Longao's body suddenly disappeared and in the next second, he appeared 1 meter away. Longao was very satisfied with the power of teleportation. He stood up and stretched his back. In the 8 realms of the illusionary divine stage, from the lowest to the highest, they were half-sage, sage, earth sage, sky sage, sage king, sage emperor, sage venerable and sage emperor. Longao was well aware that he had just broken through to the illusionary divine stage and was considered to be at the lowest level of the illusionary divine stage. Let's not talk about sage kings, sage reverends, and other powerful beings. Even a sage would not be his match. There were 4 levels of sage-to-be martial artists: beginner sage-to-be, intermediate sage-to-be, advanced sage-to-be, and peak sage-to-be. Longao did not continue to stay in the spirit domain of the 9 continents and rushed back to his family. Along the way, he had already spread the news and was 1 step ahead of the ethereal palace. Longao's meaning was very simple. This time, Feng Wui and Liu Buming intercepted him halfway, which was considered as violating the 1-year agreement. If the ethereal palace spread the news first, he would be in a very passive position at that time. He was afraid that he would be put on the spot. The news that Longao had spread across the 9 continents and 2 domains. Those who heard the news all scolded the ethereal palace for being a jerk. As one of the 4 major forces, they had broken the 1-year agreement with Longao. Based on this alone, the ethereal palace had become despicable. Since the ethereal palace had become despicable, Longao had become a gentleman. Because of this, there were people scolding the ethereal palace and praising Longao, causing the ethereal palace to be extremely depressed. P.S. I apologize in advance. The plot was stuck this afternoon. I thought about it for the entire afternoon and sat in front of the computer in a daze. Now that everything has cleared up, I will do my best to update the plot. Everyone, please forgive me. Chapter 496. Longao Peak. Underground, in a deep cave. Senior Prince, I beg you to spare me, I can follow you. The divine soul knelt down and begged for mercy, his body trembling slightly like a mouse seeing a cat. It turned out that the divine soul was not a divine realm martial artist, but a void god martial artist with the lowest strength among the divine realm martial artists. It was just that the divine soul wanted Longao to take him away, so he made up a lie. The prince was a real divine realm martial artist. When the prince was ambushed by the enemy and died on Longao Peak, he was afraid of being found by the enemy, so he had no choice but to seal his divine soul. The prince had been recovering from the damage to his divine soul, but it was easier said than done. Because of this, the prince sensed the existence of the divine soul and directly chose to devour it. If it was not for some reason, the divine soul would have been devoured and refined by now. You are a divine realm martial artist of the WAN Show sect? Yes, senior. When I was driven out of the WN Show sect and accidentally died, I had no choice but to seal myself. Why don't you enter reincarnation? Once a martial artist broke through to the divine realm, even if they died, their divine soul could enter reincarnation and have a great chance of being reborn, but the cultivation would have to start from scratch. Senior Prince, I believe you should know that once our divine soul enters reincarnation, 90% of it will disappear. Even if we are lucky enough to enter reincarnation, the cultivation will have to start from scratch. The prince instantly understood the divine soul's meaning, nodded and said, if I devour you, I don't know what the effect will be. Hearing this, the divine soul was so scared that his body trembled violently. He kowtowed and begged for mercy. In front of a divine realm martial artist, the divine soul had no power to resist. After all, void god and divine realm martial artists were not on the same level. It was like a child standing in front of an adult. How could he resist? But I changed my mind. Hearing this, the divine soul was not happy at all, but his heart thumped because he did not know what the divine prince in front of him wanted. The divine soul did not dare to ask or speak. Someone is coming. Longao, who had just returned to Longao Peak, immediately released his aura in an attempt to sense the existence of this mysterious supreme Dao expert. Longao was not a fool. He knew very well in his heart that if this divine realm martial artist was really hostile to him or his family, he would have already made his move. According to the strength of the divine realm martial artist, if he wanted to destroy himself and his family, it was simply a simple matter. But no matter how Longao sensed, he was unable to sense any divine Dao aura from start to finish. Longao was very clear that the reason why he was unable to sense the existence of the divine Dao aura was mainly because his strength was too low. The half-saint realm was even less than an ant in front of a celestial god. Little friend, since you're here, please come down. A voice resounded in Longao's mind. Before he could figure out what was going on, he found that his body had been enveloped by a divine Dao aura. In the next second, Longao appeared in a deep and serene cave. There were only 2 divine souls in the entire cave. Of course, he knew one of them. It was the divine soul Shongongyuan that he had brought out of the imperial city's Soulbreak Valley and had almost devoured Kwang Ao's soul. He was also the divine path warrior of the WAN Show sect. You're the master of the dragon sect, Longao? Longao was not surprised that the divine soul in front of him knew him. In any case, he and his family had only moved to Longao Peak later. He believed that the divine soul in front of him had already existed for a long time. You can call me Prince. I believe you should know this one. Longao nodded and said, Senior Prince, I didn't know you were at Longao Peak. Otherwise, I wouldn't have moved here. But since this is Senior's territory, I will lead my family away from Longao Peak later. Longao Peak. That's a very good name. Longao, I've been quite lonely here for so many years. It's good to have you and your family as company. You don't have to move away. Hearing this, Longao was overjoyed. At this moment, he was completely sure that the divine soul in front of him had no malice towards him and his family. If that was the case, it might not be a bad thing. Longao was not a fool. Of course, he knew what a divine soul represented. Once he became friends with a divine soul, even if the four great forces attacked him in the future, he would not have to fear them. Glancing at Shongongyuan not far away, Longao felt contempt in his heart. Shongongyuan had obviously deceived him. He didn't want to pass on his divine soul to others, but wanted him to bring him out. Longao, please sit. Thank you, Senior Prince. Longao didn't stand on ceremony. He found a boulder and sat down. Without any hesitation, he got straight to the point and said, "Thank you, Senior. Otherwise, my good brother would have been killed by this person. There's no need to be polite. Although I don't oppose divine souls possessing a body and being reborn, what Shongongyuan did was indeed a little unkind. Shongongyuan, tell me, how will you explain this?" Hearing the prince's words, Shongongyuan cursed in his heart. But because of the prince's strength, he could only obediently comply. Otherwise, there was only one fate for him, and that was to be devoured by the divine soul. Senior Prince, after sealing myself for so many years, I admit that I really want to seize a divine soul and be reborn. As the saying goes, the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Since Longao believed me, he can only blame himself for being stupid and not me. I wonder if Senior Prince is willing to admit this. I admit it. Without waiting for the prince to speak, Longao had already taken the lead and said, "I don't deny that the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. I also admit that I chose to believe you and I deserved to be deceived. But Shongongyuan, you have to remember one thing. You shouldn't have devoured my brother's soul. So, I will settle this debt with you. No matter what, you have to give me an explanation." "Give you an explanation?" Shongongyuan sneered. In his opinion, a puny world emperor wasn't even worth a fart in his eyes. If he wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. Ridicule, disdain, contempt, all sorts of expressions appeared. Shongongyuan smiled and said, "If Senior Prince wasn't here to support you, I'd like to ask you, would you still dare to speak to me like this? In the end, you're just a piece of trash." Provocation. Shongongyuan wasn't an idiot. Of course, he knew that if the prince stood on Longao's side, then he would be in trouble. So, he could only use provocation to make the prince care about his face and not act against him. Whether it was the prince or Longao, they naturally knew what Shongongyuan meant. Because of this, the two of them looked down on Shongongyuan in their hearts. P.S. Congratulations to the prince and Shongongyuan for becoming the number 1 and number 2 on the fan list. Little 90,000 thanks. Chapter 497. Shongongyuan, what do you want? Longao knew that Shongongyuan was not afraid of him, but of the God of Heaven Prince in front of him. The God of Heaven Prince smiled and did not speak. Shongongyuan looked at him with disdain and said, "Longao, if you have the guts, fight me fairly. If you win, you can do whatever you want to me. If you lose, you can kill yourself immediately. How about that?" Hearing what Shongongyuan said, not only did Longao laugh, but the God of Heaven Prince also laughed. A fair fight. A supreme Dao warrior wanted to have a fair fight with a sage-to-be warrior. Could such a fight be considered a fair fight? "Longao, you don't dare." Longao laughed and suddenly said, "I have seen many shameless people. You are the most shameless. Shongongyuan, you are a disgrace to the Wan Shou sect." The Wan Shou sect was obviously Shongongyuan's weak spot. When he heard Longao mention the Wan Shou sect, his face instantly became furious. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of the divine soul beside him, Shongongyuan believed that at this moment, he would have already attacked. Shongongyuan. What orders does Senior Prince have? Shongongyuan was afraid of the God of Heaven. He was afraid that the God of Heaven would devour his soul. If that was the case, he would not even have the chance to reincarnate. "I will not say much about the fair fight you mentioned just now. I know that you are not convinced. How about this? I will arrange a fair fight for the both of you. How about that? F*CKU. Shang Gongyuan cursed in his heart, but he did not dare to show his dissatisfaction. He nodded and said with a smile, I believe in Senior Prince. Shang Gongyuan was a cunning old fox. He used words to stop the god of heaven from siding with Longao. This way, he would not have to be afraid of anything. The divine Tao was the most powerful existence in the world. Even empty god martial artists were not comparable to illusionary divine martial artists. The difference between the illusionary divine stage and the divine Tao stage was like heaven and earth. The difference between the two was too great and they were not even on the same level. It was because of this that Shang Gongyuan was confident. No matter what, he was not afraid of Longao. Longao, do you have a problem? No. Longao didn't even think about it and directly agreed. He didn't know why, but he always had a feeling that the prince in front of him had an indescribable feeling for him. This feeling couldn't be expressed with words. Shang Gongyuan, I am very fair. Now, I will forcibly suppress your spirit realm to the half-saint realm. In this way, the battle between you two can be called fair. What do you think? Shang Gongyuan was startled. His cultivation had been forcibly suppressed to the semisage realm. So, it would be a lie if he said that he wasn't worried. However, Shang Gongyuan clearly knew that he didn't have any other choice since the matter had already reached this point. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the opportunity to regret once the prince started a massacre and devoured his spirit. Thinking of this, Shang Gongyuan nodded and agreed, I have no problem. Let's see if Longao dares to accept the challenge. In fact, Shang Gongyuan was still very confident in his heart. This was because he believed that even if his cultivation was forcefully suppressed, it was still impossible for his opponent to be his match. After all, when two martial artists of the same level fought, they relied on actual combat experience and other factors. Senior, I have no problem with that either. Well, in that case, let's begin. As soon as the prince finished speaking, Shang Gongyuan felt his spirit tremble. Then, his cultivation rapidly dropped. In the blink of an eye, it had dropped to the so-called half-saint realm. In this way, Shang Gongyuan had also become a half-saint spirit. Heaving a sigh of relief, Longao increasingly felt that the prince seemed to be taking care of him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suppressed Shang Gongyuan's spirit realm. In any case, if other people were to choose between himself and a spirit of the divine path, everyone would 100% choose him. Longao, wait a moment. I will let you know what is called disparity and what is called trash. Go to hell. Longao simply didn't want to talk nonsense with the prince. He rushed out like an arrow. In order to end the battle quickly, Longao directly used his self-created martial technique, Sorrow of the Heavens and Earth, and integrated the imposing aura of the heavens and earth. There was no tornado this time. Longao knew very well that the best way to defeat a spirit was to use a soul attack. However, if he used a soul attack at the beginning, there was an 80% chance of success. It was because of this that Longao chose to advance in order to retreat. The imposing aura of the heavens and earth, you are Nirvana. Before Shang Gongyuan finished speaking, the imposing aura of the heavens and earth released by Longao directly enveloped him. At this time, an illusory dragon shadow appeared behind Longao. Then, a dragon's roar resounded throughout the cave. Innate remarkable ability, Dragon's Roar. Seeing Longao use his innate remarkable ability, the prince seemed to be a little excited. His body began to tremble because of excitement. His face was full of surprise. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he restrained himself. Innate remarkable ability? Impossible, this is impossible. Shang Gongyuan roared. As a supreme Tao warrior, of course, Shang Gongyuan knew what Longao released. Innate remarkable ability, the most powerful innate martial technique of the Long family. However, in order to awaken the innate remarkable ability, one must go to the Long family ancestral hall. As everyone knew, in order to enter the Long family ancestral hall for baptism, one must be at least level 3. Strictly speaking, only level 2 or level 1 Long family disciples could do it. As for level 6 Long family disciples, they didn't even need to think about it. In that case, how could Longao release his innate remarkable ability? What in the world was going on? Could it be that his eyes were playing tricks on him? Before Shang Gongyuan could recover from his shock, he was shocked to find that his body was actually locked. Moreover, the flow of time around him began to reverse, causing Shang Gongyuan to almost collapse. Kill. Of course, Longao would not let go of this rare opportunity. If Shang Gongyuan's original strength was at its peak, Longao would definitely not be his opponent. However, the situation now was completely different. Shang Gongyuan's realm had been forcefully suppressed by the prince. Therefore, Longao had full confidence that he could completely disregard anyone of the same level as him. However, at this moment, the prince's voice suddenly sounded in Longao's mind. The meaning was simple. Don't kill Shang Gongyuan, just teach him a lesson. Although Longao did not know what the prince meant, he still chose to agree. No matter what, the prince had saved Kwangao. Moreover, if the prince had not sided with him, he would not have been able to defeat Shang Gongyuan. He would not have had the slightest chance. This was the difference between an illusionary divine stage martial artist and a supreme Dao warrior. Although he couldn't kill, he could still get lucky. With a chuckle, Longao directly used the mystical dragon arm and started to punch Shang Gongyuan. He used all his strength and did not hold back. Chapter 498. Longao's divine dragon arm merged with the aura of heaven and earth. He didn't hold back at all. His fists were as fast as lightning. In just a few seconds, he had already punched hundreds of times, causing Shang Gongyuan to scream in pain. Enough. Longao wasn't willing to stop, but since the senior prince had said so, he didn't continue and retreated reluctantly. If Shang Gongyuan was in the divine path realm, Longao wouldn't have taken action. He knew his limits. However, Shang Gongyuan's current situation was completely different. His realm was suppressed by the senior prince. He wasn't afraid of anyone in the same realm. Longao, I'm going to kill you. If it wasn't for the senior prince, I would have killed you right now. Hearing the cold voice, Shang Gongyuan didn't know why he shivered. He wanted to say something, but he didn't say it in the end. Shang Gongyuan, the winner takes all. Since you've already lost, you have to admit it. I know. He wasn't convinced at all. In Shang Gongyuan's opinion, if he wasn't suppressed by the senior prince, would a puny Longao be his opponent? However, the senior prince was obviously siding with Longao. Shang Gongyuan wasn't a fool. How could he not see it? He had to suffer in silence, unable to voice out his bitterness. He could only curse in his heart. Shang Gongyuan, I'll settle this later. Go and rest first. Then, regardless of whether Shang Gongyuan was willing or not, an aura shot out from the senior prince and shrouded Shang Gongyuan. Just like that, Shang Gongyuan disappeared into thin air. Old ancestor. You've already guessed it. The senior prince was surprised because he didn't expect the young man in front of him to have already guessed his identity. After all, he didn't have time to announce his identity. Nodding, Longao said helplessly, I can clearly sense that we have a bloodline connection. Moreover, old ancestor is obviously siding with me this time. Otherwise, I would have been killed by Shang Gongyuan. Ha 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 ha, good, good, good. After saying the word good 3 times, the senior prince's face was full of praise. That's right, I'm Long Batian. As expected. Although Longao had already guessed the prince's true identity, he could not help but feel shocked. According to his grandfather, the old ancestor had already fallen, and his big brother had obtained the old ancestor's legacy. But now, not only was the old ancestor standing in front of him alive, he was also a heavenly god. What was going on? Ancestor, to be honest, not long ago, grandfather gave the succession of the martial monarch to my brother. Why are you here? Longao couldn't figure it out, but Long Batian nodded with a smile and said, the inheritance of the great emperor in the family isn't my inheritance. It's just that I killed an enemy and forcefully stripped his inheritance. Hearing the old ancestor's words, Longao swallowed his saliva fiercely. It was too ruthless. It could actually strip away the inheritance of a great sovereign expert. He believed that even a supreme Tao expert might not be able to do this. The inheritance was very simple. Unless one was willing to do so, it was impossible to forcefully take it away. No matter what, I'm glad that you didn't inherit the martial monarch's legacy. You're the disciple with the most potential in our Long family. No matter what, you have to break through to the Supreme Tao realm. Supreme Tao realm? Could it be the heavenly God realm? Long Batian did not continue to speak, and Longao did not continue to ask, because he knew very well in his heart that if the old ancestor wanted to say, there was no need for him to ask. But if he did not want to say, the old ancestor would not say it no matter what. Tell me about the current situation of the family. Longao was full of respect for the old ancestor before him. According to his grandfather, the old ancestor Long Batian was a peerless genius that only appeared once in 1,000 years. Long family was jealous of him because of his brilliance, which eventually led to the death of the old ancestor. Longao didn't hide anything from the old ancestor. He told him about the current situation of the family in detail. After listening, Long Batian seemed to be very satisfied. He wasn't worried at all and said, "Go ahead and do it. Although I can't leave this mountain, I can guarantee the safety of the family." You're only a sage to be now. So there's only one thing that you have to do now, and that is to increase your strength as soon as possible. Before Longao could finish his words, Long Batian continued, the great thousand world is full of powerful people. What you see now is only the tip of the iceberg. So you have to increase your strength as soon as possible and develop the power of the family. Longao nodded. Of course, he knew what the old ancestor was talking about. The world was full of powerful people. The illusionary divine realm, the great emperor realm, the supreme Tao realm. Longao knew that he still had a long way to go. Old ancestor, I will definitely do it. Alright, I believe you. I didn't let you kill Shongongyuan just now because I was prepared to take away his supreme Tao inheritance and pass it on. However, I won't give Shongongyuan's supreme Tao inheritance to that friend of yours. Longao had already guessed this point. This was because the old ancestor valued the family more than him. He would rather find an unsuitable disciple to inherit the supreme Tao inheritance than give it to an outsider. Longao knew that he believed in domineering arrogance because he saw domineering arrogance as a brother. However, others didn't think so, especially the old ancestor. Longao knew clearly about the old ancestor's worries. Once domineering arrogance accepted the inheritance and became a supreme Tao expert, wouldn't the family suffer a double loss if domineering arrogance were to leave the family? It was because of this that Longao didn't blame the old ancestor. He knew that no matter who it was, they would do the same. It was understandable that they would do it for the family. Old ancestor, who are you going to give the supreme Tao inheritance to? We'll talk about this later. First, I need to take away Shongongyuan's supreme Tao inheritance. It seems simple, but it's actually very difficult. It will take at least a few months and at most a few years. Longao nodded. Although he didn't know how difficult it would be to take away the inheritance, he could totally imagine it. At this time, Long Batian suddenly said, I will now pass the inheritance to you. Remember, if you want the family to develop thoroughly, you must first increase the strength of everyone in the family. Taking away the inheritance, Longao never thought that the old ancestor would pass the inheritance to him. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't surprised. After all, after cultivating the inheritance, other than refining soul slaves and corpse slaves, he could also take away the inheritance by force. At this speed, the family would develop very quickly. At that time, they could also prepare to move in with the Long family. P.S. Congratulations to Shongongyuan for becoming a Hall Master. This is also the first Hall Master in this book. I hope there will be the first Protector, Elder, Sect Master, and Master. Little Nine is looking forward to the birth of the first Alliance Master. At that time, I will give you my chrysanthemum. Hee hee. Chapter 499. Next, Longao devoted himself to cultivating the skill of stripping inheritance. After an unknown period of time. Shongongyuan, do you know the relationship between me and Longao? Shaking his head, Shongongyuan answered curiously, I don't know. Please enlighten me. I'm from the Long family. Long Batian did not continue, but Shongongyuan was not a fool. Of course, he understood what he meant. Before Shongongyuan could recover from his shock, his soul was devoured. Long Batian was an heavenly god while Shongongyuan was only an empty god. The difference between the two was too great. Don't tell anyone about me. Do you understand? Understood. Of course, Longao knew what the old ancestor meant. He turned and left the cave, returning to his family. Only then did the Long family know that Longao had returned. Longao did not tell anyone about the old ancestor. He only chatted with his grandfather, parents, and Aoshue. He did not even mention anything about the ethereal palace. Feng Wui and Liu Buming returned to the ethereal palace and immediately joined forces with the level 3 Long family and Nether Mansion to fight against the dragon sect. But what made the ethereal palace furious was that no matter how hard they tried, the two forces would not agree to it. The reason was simple. This was the grudge between the ethereal palace and the dragon sect. It had nothing to do with them. The Nether Mansion and level 3 Long family were not fools. Since the ethereal palace was so anxious, something must have happened. If the ethereal palace was determined to fight against the dragon sect, even if they did not join forces, they believed that the ethereal palace would do the same. If that was the case, why should they look for trouble? The ethereal palace knew what the Nether Mansion and level 3 Long family were thinking, but there was nothing they could do. Just by themselves. If there were no other three forces, the ethereal palace would not be afraid of the dragon sect. Even if there were 10 or 100 dragon sects, the ethereal palace would not be afraid. But the situation was completely different now. Once the ethereal palace took action against the dragon sect, not to mention that both sides would suffer losses, the ethereal palace's attention would be diverted by the dragon sect. By then, they would be in big trouble. The ethereal palace knew very well that the Nether Mansion and the level 3 Longao couldn't wait for the ethereal palace and the dragon sect to fight to the death. When the time came, they would be able to reap the benefits. In the end, the ethereal palace also chose to endure. The ethereal palace did not make a move, but the dragon sect did. The Snake Emperor led an army of corpse slaves and began a crusade against the 9 states. Those who did not submit were directly destroyed. They were vicious and merciless, and the battle ended quickly. The 9 states were the Sky State, the Earth State, the Sun State, the Moon State, the Sunset State, the Cloud State, the Crimson State, the Illusion State, and the Black Forest State. With Tianju as the center, the dragon sect spread out. Their first target was Yunju. No matter what, the number 1 sect in Yunju, the so-called Yunju sect, had been destroyed by the dragon sect. Compared to the other 7 states, Yunju was much easier to deal with. Longao gave all the power to the Snake Emperor. The Snake Emperor seemed to want to prove to others, especially the ethereal palace that had abandoned him. He wanted to let the ethereal palace know that their decision back then was wrong. As for the Snake Emperor's intention, how could Longao not know? It was also because of this that he gave the power to the Snake Emperor alone. He wanted to stimulate the Snake Emperor's fighting spirit and speed up the pace of conquering the 9 states. There were countless forces in the 9 states. It was not an easy task to conquer them one by one. The Snake Emperor also recognized this point, so he made an example of them. One had to admit that the method of making an example of them was very effective. As long as the Snake Emperor led the corpse slave army to destroy a force, the surrounding forces would definitely be frightened. In addition to the Snake Emperor's coercion, the Cloud State and the Crimson State were conquered in just a month. When the news reached the Dragon Sect, everyone in the Dragon Sect was extremely excited. However, at this time, the Ethereal Palace's forces suddenly intervened. They did not directly clash with the Snake Emperor and occupied the other states. Longao was already prepared for the Ethereal Palace's sudden intervention. This was because Feng Wui and Liu Buming did not succeed in killing him this time. He believed that the ethereal palace would definitely not let it go. At the very least, they would have to regain their face. Otherwise, where would the ethereal palace's face go? According to the Snake Emperor, since the ethereal palace dared to intervene in this matter, they would definitely not let it go. Not to mention the problem of face, once the ethereal palace occupied a few states, it would be extremely difficult for the dragon sect to take them back in the future. However, at this time, Longao urgently called the Snake Emperor back to the sect, which made the Snake Emperor very unhappy. However, no matter what, the master of the dragon sect was Longao and not him. No matter how great his power was, it could not be greater than Longao's. It was because of this that the Snake Emperor had no choice but to bring the corpse slave army back to the sect. The Snake Emperor, who had just returned to the sect, had already received the news that the master had withdrawn from the Cloud State and the Crimson State. The Snake Emperor was furious. He could not understand why the master would withdraw his forces from the Cloud State and the Crimson State. He was not willing to give away the empire that he had fought so hard for just like that. Dragon Sect, Main Hall. Master, I have something to ask you. Why did you withdraw your forces from the Cloud State and the Crimson State? The Snake Emperor's attitude was extremely bad, which made the surrounding people furious. Ouyang Fei said angrily, Snake Emperor, don't go too far. You are only an elder of the sect, not the master of the sect. The master does not need to go through you for anything. The Snake Emperor also knew that his attitude just now was a little too much. No matter what, Longao was still the master. There was a huge difference in status between the two. Just as Ouyang Fei said, the master did not need to go through him for any decision. However, the Snake Emperor was not willing to give away the empire that he had fought so hard for just like that. He believed that no matter who it was, they would not be able to accept this fact, let alone him. Longao smiled, waved his hand and said, Elder Snake, please take a seat. Taking a deep breath, the Snake Emperor bowed respectfully and said, I was reckless just now. Master, I really don't understand why the Cloud State and the Crimson State that we have fought so hard for have to be withdrawn. Longao stopped Ouyang Fei, who was about to speak again, and said with a smile, the reason is very simple. I don't want to go head-to-head with the ethereal palace. The reason why Longao was not angry was that he knew very well that the Snake Emperor was doing this for the good of the sect. Otherwise, he would have already lost his temper with the Snake Emperor's attitude just now. As the master of a sect, he must do what he should do and resolutely not do what he should not do. Only in this way could he make everyone in the sect obey him. It could be said that Longao was the soul of the dragon sect. Usually, they could not feel it. Once something happened to Longao, the dragon sect would not be able to hold on. Elder Snake, I don't need to say more about the strength of the ethereal palace. I believe that you know it 10,000 times better than all of us. I want to ask, if we go head-to-head, even if we have the corpse slave army, can we go against the ethereal palace? Chapter 500. As the former palace master of the ethereal palace, no one knew the situation of the ethereal palace better than the Snake Emperor. The Snake Emperor knew very well that any one of the four major forces was not incompetent. Otherwise, the four major forces would not have been able to dominate the 9-state spirit domain. The Snake Emperor's expression was very ugly. No matter what, he was unwilling to accept it. Apart from being unwilling, it was more that he had lost the opportunity to witness himself. Back then, the ethereal palace had chased him out. He would never forget it for the rest of his life. Therefore, the Snake Emperor wanted to tell the ethereal palace that they would regret losing him. Longao knew clearly what the Snake Emperor meant. However, for the sake of the big picture, he could not only care about one person. Elder Snake, with our current strength, there is no need to go head-on with the ethereal palace. When we find the right opportunity, we can just stomp them back. There is no need to be so quick. He was startled. Hearing the master's words, the Snake Emperor understood what he meant. Master, I was wrong. Waving his hand, Longao smiled and said, there is no need to take responsibility. The sect will help you with the grudge between you and the ethereal palace. After hearing Longao's words, it would be a lie to say that he was not moved. Especially when the dragon sect was compared to the ethereal palace. The difference was like heaven and earth. Master, what should we do next? The ethereal palace had already shown their attitude by interfering in the 9 states. Just as the master said, if they chose to go head-on, the sect would not be able to gain the slightest advantage. Everyone looked at Longao. After all, this was not a small matter. Losing the 9 states was a small matter, but implicating the sect was a big matter. Longao had already thought about the matter of the ethereal palace interfering in the 9 states. After coughing twice, Longao said, since the ethereal palace wants the 9 states so much, then we will fulfill their wish. From now on, the sect will not allow anyone to interfere in the 9 states. Longao had almost guessed the ethereal palace's intention. With the lessons learned from the previous few times, it was believed that the ethereal palace would not dare to come to the sect. Since that was the case, the ethereal palace only had one way, and that was to intervene in the 9 provinces. Without giving anyone a chance to speak, Longao had already stood up and left, leaving everyone behind. You look at me, I look at you, you have no idea what the sect master meant. Ao, what are you going to do? Longao was preparing to leave Tianju, so before he left, he returned to his family. However, he only told his grandfather Long Haotian about this. As for the others, he didn't even tell his parents. He was afraid that his parents, Aoshue, and the others would be worried. Longao didn't hide anything from his grandfather. Grandpa, previously, Feng Wui and Liu Buming violated the agreement and tried to kill me halfway. This time, they interfered in the affairs of the 9 prefectures. If I were to sit and wait for my death, the ethereal palace would think that I'm afraid of them. The ethereal palace is one of the 4 major forces. Its foundation and strength are there. If you act rashly this time, what if, although Long Haotia didn't finish his words, the meaning of his words was very clear. No matter what, there were saints in the ethereal palace. If his grandson went there openly, would it be easy to fight? However, Longao was full of confidence. He said confidently, Grandpa, don't worry. I won't act rashly. Since I can't do it openly, I'll do it secretly. Long Haotia was also an old fox. He instantly understood his grandson's meaning. Long Haotia was very confident in his grandson. With Longao's current strength as a half-saint, if he chose to assassinate, he believed that even the saints of the ethereal palace couldn't do anything to Longao. Of course, Long Haotia knew that Longao had the spatial teleportation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have agreed so easily. Spatial teleportation. Until now, Long Haotia still couldn't believe that Aoa had the spatial teleportation. In this world, there was actually such a heaven-defying martial skill. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. Grandpa, the ethereal palace won't let me leave this time. If nothing goes wrong, the ethereal palace will definitely come to assassinate the people of the family and the sect. So, Grandpa, you must keep an eye on everyone and forbid anyone from leaving. Longao wasn't very worried about the safety of the family as long as the disciples of the family didn't leave the Longao peak. For the sake of safety, Longao invited the fire Kailin from the family to the dragon sect. In any case, the old ancestor Longao was at the foot of the Longao peak. Unless the ethereal palace directly sent out divine realm experts, who else could be the old ancestor's opponent? I understand. From the beginning to the end, Longao didn't tell his grandpa about the old ancestor's matter, including anyone else. After settling everything, Longao immediately got up and left. With the help of the teleportation formation, he quietly entered the 9-state spirit domain. If it was in the past when the dragon sect didn't have the teleportation formation, it would be too difficult for Longao to do this. However, the situation now was completely different. After entering the 9-state spirit domain, Longao didn't return to the city of Sin. Instead, he went straight to the north. There were 4 major forces in the 9-state spirit domain. They were the East Royal City, the Long family in the west, the Netherhell Mansion in the south, and the Ethereal Palace in the north. The main reason Longao entered the Nine-State Spirit Domain this time was the Ethereal Palace. This time, Feng Wui and Liu Buming violated the one-year agreement, which made Longao furious. He didn't care about anything else and was prepared to assassinate the disciples of the Ethereal Palace. It would be great to kill one or even a couple. In this way, Longao began to assassinate. With his current strength, unless it was a saint, even a half-saint warrior couldn't escape from Longao's assassination. Yin Baishan, a half-saint warrior of the Ethereal Palace, was considered the most powerful elder in the outer sect. He usually lived in the Ethereal City and helped the Ethereal Palace to manage all the affairs of the outer sect. As soon as Longao stepped into the Ethereal City, he directly targeted the most powerful elder in the Ethereal City. Longao knew very well that if he wanted the Ethereal Palace to suffer, he had to assassinate powerful elders and talented disciples. Otherwise, assassinating ordinary disciples would be useless. Because of this, Longao directly targeted the most powerful elder in the Ethereal City, Yin Baishan. As the largest city of the Ethereal Palace, the Ethereal City was extremely prosperous. After entering the city, Longao didn't immediately take action because he disguised himself a little this time. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to recognize him at all. Longao didn't want to alert the enemy immediately. After all, there were many experts in the Ethereal Palace. Once he was discovered, not to mention continuing the assassination, it would be a problem whether he could leave the Ethereal City safely. Because of this, Longao prepared to do it quietly. After entering the Ethereal City, Longao began to observe Yin Baishan's comings and goings. After asking around, he almost grasped the general idea of Yin Baishan. In other words, Longao was full of confidence. P.S. Congratulations to the first Guardian Noble Shamate for becoming a Guardian. Little Nine's chrysanthemum is yours. Chapter 501. According to Longao's information, this elder of Ethereal Palace would almost never leave Ethereal City. And one of Yin Baishan's favorite places was Glory Tea House. Under normal circumstances, Yin Baishan would arrive punctually at dusk every day. Longao arrived at Glory Tea House in advance. The moment he sat down and asked for a cup of tea, he called for the waiter. "I'll book this place today." "No." The waiter rejected him without even thinking and turned to leave. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even look at Longao. How was he like a waiter? He was clearly a boss. If it were any other waiter, he would definitely do anything for money. But Glory Tea House was different. Longao wasn't surprised at all because he had already thought of the reason. Without a doubt, the reason why Glory Tea House was so awesome and even a waiter was acting like a boss was because of Yin Baishan's daily patronage. As an elder of Ethereal Palace, Yin Baishan's status was needless to say. Coupled with his strength, it could be said that Yin Baishan was the local tyrant of Ethereal City. About an hour later, an old man walked in slowly. When Longao saw this person, he immediately perked up. Even though the old man didn't look like much, Longao could clearly sense the powerful aura emanating from the old man. "Elder Yin, you're here. Take a seat." Waving his hand, Yin Baishan didn't sit down. Instead, he looked over at Longao. Just as Longao was feeling surprised, Yin Baishan was already standing in front of him. "Give me a good pot of Longjing tea. Please wait a moment. I'll be right there." Yin Baishan sat down and looked at the young man before him. Suddenly, he asked, "Dragon Sect Master, Longao?" He was already shocked to the extreme. Putting aside the fact that he had already disguised himself, he hadn't even seen Yin Baishan before, let alone know him. It was because of this that Longao couldn't figure out how the old man could recognize him at a glance. Now that things had come to this point, Longao didn't hide it anymore. He said, "Yes, everyone says that Elder Yin is a great person. Now it seems that you are really powerful." Without waiting for Yin Baishan to speak, Longao continued, "I really want to know how you recognized me. Master Dragon, please have some tea." At this time, the Longjing tea was already old. Yin Baishan first poured a cup for Longao, then poured a cup for himself, and said, "It's very simple. Master Long's aura can't be hidden at all. It can be said that I have admired Master Long for a long time. Seeing you today, you really live up to your reputation." Longao began to feel fearful. He had never expected the outer sect elder of the ethereal palace to be so powerful that he could recognize him just by his aura. The more Yin Baishan acted like this, the more Longao feared him. "Master Long, there is no grudge between us. I am just an outer sect elder of the ethereal palace. I am already old and I don't want to interfere in the internal affairs of the palace. So, do you understand what I mean?" Nodding, Longao wasn't a fool. Of course, he understood what Yin Baishan meant. The meaning was simple. "I, Yin Baishan, had no grudge with you. The grudge between you and the ethereal palace had nothing to do with me." Yin Baishan made Longao a little confused. Longao even wondered if the old man in front of him was still an elder of the ethereal palace. "Elder Yin. If you don't mind, you can call me Brother Yin." Shrugging his shoulders, Longao said, "Brother Yin, I believe you should know about the grudge between me and the ethereal palace. I am puzzled. According to our relationship, we only have swords and knives when we meet. But now, you and I are sitting down and drinking tea together. Don't you feel awkward?" "Master Long, I have just said that the grudge between you and the ethereal palace has nothing to do with me. I am already old and I don't want to interfere in the affairs of the sect. In another 2 years, I will leave the ethereal palace and live in seclusion. Although our paths are different, I really want to be friends with you. Master Long's actions are definitely unprecedented. Taking the initiative to show goodwill." Until now, Longao still didn't understand what the person in front of him meant. Although the other party took the initiative to show goodwill, Longao still didn't dare to let down his guard. After all, Yin Baishan was an elder of the ethereal palace and not an elder of the dragon sect. "Sect Master Long, let's get straight to the point. The reason you've come to Floating City this time around is to kill me. However, I can tell you clearly that with your current strength, you're no match for me." Longao nodded. He completely believed this and said, "The rumors outside are not true. I also didn't expect that Brother Yin's cultivation has reached the Saint Realm and the Peak Saint Realm. That's why I am more curious. Since Brother Yin's cultivation has reached the Peak Saint Realm, the ethereal palace should pay attention to you." "Why? Peak Saint Realm?" Although Longao didn't want to believe it, the aura released by Yin Baishan just now was indeed that of a Peak Saint Realm. So Longao knew that Yin Baishan didn't mean any harm. Otherwise, with Yin Baishan's strength, it would be easy for him to deal with him. There was no need for him to go through so much trouble. "Master Long, you don't know. I have always wanted to live a carefree life. I don't want to live a life of intrigue. What's more, my cultivation has reached a bottleneck. If I want to continue to break through, I have to calm down and comprehend nature. Otherwise, it will be impossible for me to break through in this lifetime." So that was it. Toward this kind of person, Longao actually still admired him very much in his heart. "Master Long, let me give you a piece of advice. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. With your talent and potential, you will definitely become a great emperor in 10 years. At that time, it won't be too late to deal with the 4 forces." Without waiting for Longao to finish speaking, Yin Baishan continued, "The 4 major forces have been able to dominate the 9 regions' spirit domain for so many years. Their background is completely not what you can imagine, so it's still the same sentence, where there is life, there is no need to worry about firewood." How could Longao not know about Yin Baishan's kindness? But could he choose to let it go? Longao knew that even if he was willing to let go of his hatred for the time being, he believed that the 4 forces wouldn't. Instead of being attacked passively, it was better to take the initiative to attack. "Brother Yin, I appreciate your kindness, but I can't avoid everything. There are some things that a man must do in this world. There is no way to avoid it. The 4 forces will definitely not let me go. In that case, why should I avoid it? It's better to fight. Life and death are up to fate." With admiration written all over his face, Yin Baishan nodded and said, "That's right. I know I can't persuade you, but I can tell you a secret about the ethereal palace. I hope it will help you. P.S. Congratulations to the appearance of the second protector. Xiao Ju's chrysanthemum is also for you. I hope everyone will support me. I look forward to the appearance of the elder. Chapter 502. Please go ahead, Brother Yin. Longao was very curious. He didn't know what Yin Baishan wanted to tell him. But seeing how serious Yin Baishan was, it seemed that it was no small matter. Master Long, you're here to deal with Ethereal Palace. Longao didn't say anything, which meant that he agreed. In fact, even a fool could guess that he came to Ethereal City to deal with Ethereal Palace. 10 years ago, the Ethereal Palace found a treasure and guarded it for 10 whole years. You are really lucky. 3 days later, this treasure will mature. As long as you can get it, not only can you increase your strength, you can also make the Ethereal Palace feel heartache. What treasure? Where is it? Longao's interest was piqued. Flying Goose Mountain, Water Curtain Cave. After thinking for a while, Yin Baishan continued, Master Long, you must be careful. There are 2 saints guarding the Water Curtain Cave. Nodding, Longao stood up. When he was about to leave, he suddenly asked, Brother Yin, I'd like to ask, why are you helping me like this? Long Batian. Without continuing to ask, Longao's body quickly disappeared into the crowd. Looking at the young man who had left, Yin Baishan suddenly smiled and said, Senior Long, you saved my family back then. Today, I'll return the favor. From today onwards, I, Yin Baishan, will live in seclusion. It turned out that Yin Baishan helped Longao this time because of Long Batian. Because of this, when Yin Baishan said the name of the old ancestor, Longao already knew what had happened. Longao knew very well that the reason why Yin Baishan helped him was not because of his face, but because of the old ancestor. Without thinking about Yin Baishan's question, Longao thought for a while and finally decided to go to the Water Curtain Cave. No matter what treasure it was, he couldn't let Ethereal Palace take advantage of it. Longao was very curious. He didn't know what treasure it was that it was worthy of 2 saints of Ethereal Palace to guard it. What a saint represented, Longao was very clear in his heart, so just thinking about it, he knew how precious the treasure in the Water Curtain Cave was. Longao did not rashly head to the Flying Goose Mountain. No matter what, the Water Curtain Cave had always been guarded by 2 saints. If they were discovered, would it be possible to seize the treasures from the hands of the 2 saints? Longao spent a lot of money to obtain information about the Flying Goose Mountain Curtain Cave. It turned out that the Flying Goose Mountain was a forbidden area of the Ethereal Palace. Not to mention ordinary disciples, even core disciples of the Ethereal Palace could not go there. The more the Ethereal Palace acted like this, the more certain Longao was that there was definitely a treasure in the Flying Goose Mountain Curtain Cave. 3 days. Originally, according to Longao's intention, entering Ethereal City this time was to assassinate Yin Baishan and the disciples of Ethereal Palace. But now, he had decided to go to Flying Goose Mountain. If he continued to carry out the assassination, he would definitely alert the enemy. Thinking of this, Longao did not act rashly. Instead, he found an inn and prepared to rest well for 2 days. After 3 days, he would head to the Flying Goose Mountain Curtain Cave. Ordinary Spirit Domain. The Dragon Sect's complete retreat allowed the Ethereal Palace to effortlessly occupy the 8 states. Only the Sky State was left. At this moment, the Ethereal Palace stopped their attacks and stopped abruptly. Unless it was a last resort, Ethereal Palace was still unwilling to completely fall out with Dragon Sect at this time. This was not to say that Ethereal Palace was afraid of Dragon Sect, but was afraid of the other 3. From the beginning to the end, Ethereal Palace did not know the strength of Dragon Sect. If they were stronger than expected, then things would be troublesome. In the beginning, the 4 major forces withdrew from 9 states and Dragon Sect became the only overlord. With Ethereal Palace's re-entry, 9 states was divided into 2, each occupying half of the country. Ethereal Palace forced Dragon Sect to retreat. The people of 9 states who were originally full of confidence in Dragon Sect were all shocked. They did not know what was going on with Dragon Sect. Why were they retreating and not fighting Ethereal Palace head-on? For a long time, Longao had counterattacked. This time, he suddenly chose to retreat, which made everyone depressed. But most of them still chose to believe in Longao, thinking that Ethereal Palace was a villain. One day, Longao would counterattack again and deal a heavy blow to Ethereal Palace. Half of the country. Ethereal Palace's actions caused the Imperial City to take action as well. But the Imperial City was not helping Ethereal Palace, but helping Dragon Sect to deal with Ethereal Palace. Ethereal Palace had never thought that the Imperial City would suddenly attack and fight without any regard for their lives. Were they going to fight head-on? The Ethereal Palace wasn't a fool. If they went head-on against the Imperial City, both sides would suffer heavy losses. That would only benefit the Nether Mansion, Level 3 Long family, and Dragon Sect. The Ethereal Palace would never do such a stupid thing. Because of this, Ethereal Palace chose to retreat and give up 4 out of the 8 states. This way, 9 states would go from 2 forces to 3 forces. However, Imperial City and Dragon Sect were allies in name. Seeing that Imperial City and Ethereal Palace had re-entered 9 states, Nether Mansion and Level 3 Long family could no longer sit still. The 4 major forces knew that 9 states had Grave of the Gods. If Imperial City and Ethereal Palace could gain a firm foothold, it would not be so difficult for them to re-enter 9 states. Because of this, Level 3 Long family and Nether Mansion immediately re-entered 9 states. From the beginning, all of them had retreated. Now, 9 states was once again in chaos. The 4 forces fought for supremacy and started to fight with each other. It wasn't easy for them to take over the 4 states. No matter if it was the Imperial City or the Ethereal Palace, they wouldn't hand it over so easily. Therefore, the 4 forces started to fight while the Dragon Sect retreated to the Sky State and quietly watched the 4 forces fight. The 4 major forces had a huge grudge to begin with. It had accumulated over the years. In addition to the countless casualties in the previous war, there was no way to ignite it. This time, the 4 major forces were completely enraged. They knew that this was not the best time to start a war, but they could not control themselves. Wave after wave, they poured in endless manpower and money. Gradually, the Great War of the 9 states spread to all places except the Tianju. The 4 major forces seemed to have a tacit understanding. No matter who it was, they would not step into Tianju. This was giving Dragon Sect enough face. As for the reason, no one knew. Perhaps only the 4 major forces knew. Imperial City informed Dragon Sect to help. According to the agreement, Imperial City and Dragon Sect were allies. Dragon Sect should help. However, Dragon Sect, Snake Emperor, and Longao all refused. The reason was simple. This was a war between the 4 major forces. It was not suitable for Dragon Sect to interfere. Imperial City was so angry that they gritted their teeth. However, there was nothing they could do. After all, this was not the time to completely fall out with Dragon Sect. If Dragon Sect went crazy and attacked Imperial City would be in for a real tragedy. P.S. Congratulations on the appearance of the first female elder in this book. Little 9 is sincerely grateful. Little 9 will remember. Chapter 503. The 4 superpowers, East Royal City, Long Family of the West, Nether Mansion of the South, and Ethereal Palace of the North, finally settled down after a fierce battle. Since then, the 4 superpowers had divided the 9 regions, with each superpower occupying 2 regions and Dragon Sect occupying Tianju. In other words, the 9 regions had been divided by the 5 superpowers. Strictly speaking, the 4 superpowers had redivided the 9 regions. The short pause would usher in an even more violent storm. Dragon Sect seemed to have completely given up on fighting for the position of the overlord of the 9 regions. They hid in Tianju and did not come out. People in the 9 regions slowly began to suspect what had happened to Dragon Sect. Longao had always been high-profile and vengeful. It was impossible for him to be indifferent when he saw the 4 superpowers entering the 9 regions. All the superpowers sent their spies into Tianju, wanting to know what had happened to Dragon Sect. Everyone guessed that something had happened to Longao. Spirit region of the 9 regions, Ethereal Palace. After asking around in Ethereal City, Longao knew almost everything about Flying Goose Mountain. Next, he would go to the Water Curtain Cave. This time, Longao was extra careful. No matter what, there were 2 saints in the Water Curtain Cave, so he had to be extra careful. Flying Goose Mountain was a forbidden area of Ethereal Palace. No one was allowed to enter. For 10 years, Flying Goose Mountain had been turned into an iron bucket by Ethereal Palace. Ordinary people were not allowed to enter within 1,000 meters of Flying Goose Mountain. In fact, many people had already guessed that there were treasures in Flying Goose Mountain. Otherwise, Ethereal Palace would not have done this. Guessing was one thing, but very few people actually dared to enter Flying Goose Mountain. It had to be said that there were many people in this world who were not afraid of death. Flying Goose Mountain was a forbidden area of Ethereal Palace, but they still wanted to enter. There could only be one result. Longao was a sage-to-be martial artist. Unless it was a saint, it would be very difficult for anyone to discover his tracks. Quietly arriving at Flying Goose Mountain, Longao first hid all his aura. Then, he carefully sensed the situation around him. Other than some ordinary disciples, there did not seem to be any illusionary divine martial artists. Longao had already guessed that if nothing unexpected happened, the 2 saints should be in the Water Curtain Cave. Longao followed Yin Baixian's instructions and entered from another passageway entrance. Before long, he had already arrived outside the cave. The entire cave was covered by a water curtain. As expected, the Water Curtain Cave was magnificent. Longao was stunned for a few seconds. If he could bring his lover to live in seclusion here, it would be a good choice. Longao didn't enter the Water Curtain Cave rashly because he was sure that there were 2 saints in the cave. Saints were different from other people. If his aura was sensed, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even if he could leave successfully, wouldn't his purpose of coming here be in vain? Long Fu, help me sense the exact location of the 2 saints in the Water Curtain Cave. Also, help me sense what treasures are in the Water Curtain Cave. Master, there are 2 saints in the east and 1 in the west. The treasure in the Water Curtain Cave is very useful. If you can get it, swallow it, refine it, and merge it, you can condense the desolate divine body. Then, even a saint won't be able to break through your physical defense. Divine barren body? Longao was shocked. With Long Fu's help, he had already condensed the divine barren body. According to what Long Fu said, once he condensed the divine barren body, he would be able to fight against a saint. Even if he couldn't defeat a saint, at least he wouldn't be as helpless as before. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't excited. However, Longao didn't act rashly. Looking at the Water Curtain Cave in front of him, he began to think about what he should do to hide from the 2 saints. Longao was very clear in his heart that the 2 saints were guarding the Water Curtain Cave, 1 in the east and 1 in the west. As long as he stepped in, even if he took half a step, he would be discovered. At that time, not to mention obtaining the treasure, he might not even have the chance to leave. He came to the water curtain and looked through the gaps. Longao finally saw the general situation inside the Water Curtain Cave. The entire Water Curtain Cave was incomparably huge, and in the center, there was a huge pool. Finally, there was a huge rock in the pool, and on top of the rock, there was a kind of plant. It was 7-colored, and on top of it, there were 2 huge fruits. It was very dazzling. Could the treasures that Yin Baishan and Long Fu were talking about be these 2 fruits? Master, these 2 fruits are called divine fruits. Once consumed, not only will one's cultivation increase greatly, it can even help a titled great emperor break through to the divine path realm. I didn't expect that there would be 2 divine fruits in the small ethereal palace. Divine fruits. There was no need for Long Fu to explain further. Longao had already guessed the use of the divine fruits. Just the fact that it could increase one's cultivation showed how powerful the divine fruits were. Longao couldn't wait to get the divine fruits. However, at this moment, Longfu said, "Master, the 2 divine fruits aren't ripe yet. They need to wait until tomorrow evening. Moreover, there is a divine beast guarding the divine fruits. You must be careful." Divine beast. Hearing Longfu's words, Longao was shocked. Longao certainly knew what a divine beast represented. There was no doubt that a divine beast was a super-existence on the same level as a divine path warrior. Longao never expected that there would be a divine beast in the water curtain cave. If that was the case, didn't it mean that the divine beast was also waiting for the 2 fruits? If he got the fruits, he would offend the divine beast. Longao felt a headache at the thought of it. "I think you've already guessed it. That's right. The divine beast in the pond is also here for the 2 divine fruits. Otherwise, it would have left long ago. Longfu, can you sense what kind of divine beast is in the pond?" "Water Chileen. Water Chileen." He couldn't help cursing inside. The Chileen race was one of the strongest races in the world. They could even contend against the dragon race. The Chileen race was divided into many races. They were the Golden Chileen race, the Wood Chileen race, the Water Chileen race, the Fire Chileen race, the Earth Chileen race, the Wind Chileen race, the Lightning Chileen race, and so on. However, the Chileen race was very few in number. This was their greatest weakness. Otherwise, the Martial Heaven continent would be the Chileen race's world. There would be no dragons or humans. Divine beast Water Chileen. Longao's expression was grave. If it was just one divine beast, then that was one thing. But now it was a Water Chileen. Would he still be able to take action tomorrow evening? He didn't fear the 2 saints, but he couldn't ignore the Water Chileen. P.S. Watching TV in the morning, sleeping in the afternoon. Today was very comfortable. Chapter 504. Longfu, is there any way to avoid the divine beast Water Chileen? If it was an ordinary treasure, Longao would have given up on it immediately. No matter what, the divine beast Water Chileen was not to be trifled with. But the problem now was that the 2 divine fruits were too important to him. Putting aside whether he could make a breakthrough in his cultivation, the divine desolate body alone was very important. "Master, there is only one way now." "What is it?" "Teleport. As long as you can teleport and snatch the divine fruits the moment they ripen, I believe even the divine beast Water Chileen can't do anything about it." Nodding, Longao understood what Longfu meant. There was no other way. Longfu's method was the only way out. Just like that, Longao did not leave the water curtain cave. He stood in front of the water curtain and waited quietly. In fact, Longao was very confused. Why didn't the great emperors of the ethereal palace come out for something as precious as the divine fruits? In the end, Longao guessed that the ethereal palace was too confident. Even if there were 2 saints guarding the divine fruit, he believed that no one would dare to pull a tooth out of a tiger's mouth. Unknowingly, the next evening arrived. In the water curtain cave, the 2 saints of the ethereal palace stared at the center of the pond. The 2 divine fruits were about to ripen. They had been guarding here for 10 whole years. Finally, it was time. It's ripened. Seeing that the god fruit had ripened, the 2 saints were extremely excited. Just as they were about to make a move, a young man suddenly appeared on the giant rock in the middle. His fiery red hair danced wantonly. Without giving the 2 saints any chance, Longao directly plucked 2 god fruits from the plant. He was pleasantly surprised. But at this moment, a terrifying divine Dao aura exploded from the pond and shrouded the 3 of them. If Longao didn't know about the divine beast Water Chileen, he would have been dead by now. But now, Longao knew about the existence of the divine beast Water Chileen in advance. He had just obtained 2 divine fruits and once again used teleportation. In an instant, he appeared 1 meter away. Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately used all his strength to leave quickly. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. Divine beast. Looking at the huge creature that suddenly appeared from the bottom of the water, the 2 saints were completely stunned. The two saints had been guarding this place for 10 whole years, but they never knew that there was a divine beast hidden under the pool, and it was the most powerful water Chileen in the world. Everyone knew that the Kirin clan and the Colossal Dragon clan were the most powerful divine beasts in the world. The two saints did not even have the chance to resist. They were so scared that their legs trembled and they almost knelt on the ground. How dare you steal my divine fruit? Die. Lord Divine Beast, it's not us. We don't know what's going on either. The two saints were completely scared out of their wits. They couldn't even speak coherently. After all, it was the water Chileen in front of them. It wasn't some random Tom, Dick, or Harry. In fact, the water Chileen could easily destroy them with a flick of its finger. Die. The water Chileen didn't even listen to the two of them getting to know each other. The two saints seemed to have predicted something. Just as they were about to turn and run, their bodies were suddenly fixed in place. Before they could even let out a scream, the two of them had already been killed. This was the difference between an illusionary divine stage martial artist and a divine stage martial artist. How dare you steal my divine fruit? I'll make you regret being born in this world. The water Chileen didn't seem to be in a hurry. This was the confidence that came from being powerful. Nobody saw how the water Chileen did it. It just disappeared into thin air. Longao was extremely surprised that he managed to steal the two divine fruits using his space teleportation. While he was surprised, he didn't dare to hesitate. After all, the other party was the water Chileen. Once it caught up with him, the consequences would be dire. Longao had used his space teleportation twice consecutively. His soul couldn't support him to use it again. Otherwise, he would lose more than he gained. Brat, I'm going to tear you into pieces. Hearing the voice behind him, Longao was shocked. He didn't even need to turn back to know who had caught up with him. Without any hesitation, he used all his strength and shot forward. Longao was afraid of this and thought of a plan. No matter what, he had entered the territory of the Ethereal Palace in the spirit domain of the 9 states to deal with the Ethereal Palace. If he lured the water Chileen to the Ethereal Palace, wouldn't he be able to kill the water Chileen with a borrowed knife? The Ethereal Palace was one of the 4 superpowers in the spirit domain of the 9 states. The Ethereal Palace occupied a few hundred hectares of land and there was no end in sight. At this moment, Longao's figure suddenly appeared. Without giving the Ethereal Palace any chance, Longao directly shot towards the Ethereal Peak. Longao! When Feng Wui and Liu Buming saw Longao, they thought that they had seen wrongly. They rubbed their eyes hard, thinking that they had seen a ghost. However, at this moment, before they could react, a terrifying divine Dao aura had already suppressed them. As saints, the two of them certainly knew what had happened. They were so scared that their bodies trembled. They couldn't figure out why there was a divine Dao warrior's aura in the Ethereal Peak. Divine Dao warriors, the most powerful existence in the world, seemed to be extinct. Anyway, there hadn't been a divine Dao warrior in the 9 states for many years. However, at this moment, the divine Dao warrior's aura meant that a divine Dao warrior had appeared. Get out of my way! The powerful divine Dao aura directly suppressed them. The first expert of the Ethereal Palace, who was also the only great emperor, was about to come out to see what had happened. However, he was frightened by the sudden divine Dao aura and didn't dare to come out. Under such circumstances, the great emperor didn't care about the Ethereal Palace at all. He wanted to save his own life first. What a joke! Divine Dao warriors were at the peak of martial Dao. Great emperors were like trash in front of divine Dao warriors. Not to mention resisting, they didn't even have the chance to attack. Under divine Dao, all were ants. The divine beast water Chileen actually didn't attack the Ethereal Palace. This made Longao extremely depressed. According to his calculation, the divine beast water Chileen was lured to the Ethereal Palace. Even if it didn't destroy the Ethereal Palace, it would at least bring some losses to the Ethereal Palace. But what was the result? Longao was annoyed. He didn't care whether the other party was the divine beast water Chileen or not. He scolded, "Damn you, why do you keep chasing me? There are so many people here. You can just kill a few of them, especially the great emperor of the ethereal palace. If you kill him, I will immediately return the 2 divine fruits to you. Longao wasn't a fool. Of course, he knew that with the speed of the water Chileen, it wouldn't be difficult for it to catch up with him. However, the water Chileen didn't do so. What was the reason? It was simple. The water Chileen did it on purpose. It was like he was a mouse and the water Chileen was a cat. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.